What's going on? 6 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Kind of, sort of, not really day one at the Combine. No drills today, but a lot of team meetings. Just about every position can meet with teams today, aside from the offensive line, who starts their team meetings tomorrow. Two more high-profile draft picks will not take part in the NFL Combine. We learned yesterday as wide receivers Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver in the draft, will both wait until their pro days before working out for NFL teams. The first player to be officially tagged is wide receiver T. Higgins. No surprise there, carrying about a $21.8 million cap hit. But the running back position is not getting tagged. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, all not getting tagged and will all hit free agency. And speaking of free agency, the offensive line pool getting a little bit deeper as the Jets release guard Laken Tomlinson. The Jets will clear about 8.1 space in their salary cap, but also take on nearly $11 million in dead money. Tomlinson started 34 games during his time with the Jets and has a 138 career starts. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Tuesday morning starts right now on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW. We're brewed by 8th and Rose. 8th and Rose Coffee cultivates community by the cup. You can find your favorite retail bag in every local Kroger and Whole Foods as well. We've got NFL headlines to kick off the NFL Combine. Ben Arthur of Fox Sports, who had an exclusive one-on-one interview with Titans GM Ran Carthon. Ben will join us at 7:20 this morning. VolQuest's Austin Price, 3HL and SEC Network's Ron Slay. We've got the one and only Ramon Foster joining us from Indianapolis this morning. Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh. I'm Will Bowling. It is Tuesday, February the 27th. Welcome in, everybody. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning,
people. How
everyone.
are y'all in Middle Tennessee this morning?
Good. Woke up to a little rain this morning, but good temperatures. Not cold this morning. I'm probably overdressed, Ramon.
Well, with that air vent blowing down on you, you'll be all right in there. Yeah, you came prepared is what that is this morning.
Very true. How's Indy?
Indy is cool, man. I didn't realize, so I hadn't actually taken a drive up here since I actually came to the Combine. Like, hadn't hit the road and drove to Indiana, right, ever since February of 2009. Never had to take that drive, and I didn't realize how wide and flat and how many fields are up here and everything, too. Like, I imagine, like, I see Indianapolis as Nashville used to be. Like, you see there's room for growth, and you understand that it's capable of doing a lot of things, but it's not where Nashville is as far as the growth it's had. It's pretty cool. I won't front. It was a really cool drive in, pretty solid. Had some crosswinds, of course, driving the van with that high roof. Little shake side to side, but that's all a part of cruising down the road and stuff.
And you were driving, so that's all that matters.
But I can
was
control
safe.
it too,
Exactly.
right, Kayla? Yes, absolutely.
Love
but
that.
the same thing here too. It is warm. The last time I was here in this element, y'all, it was frigid outside. I'm talking about ice on the ground, wind, gray skies. Yesterday, I think the weather was very similar to Nashville. It was about 70. Kirby said 79.
Wow.
Record high yesterday. This is abnormal. So I had somebody on Twitter ask that question. Ron, why do you have on a sweatshirt? That's because it was cold in 2009. It's pleasant out here today and yesterday.
Wait till tomorrow.
Oh, hi, Kirby.
I love that we can hear Kirby in the background. Wait till tomorrow.
Kirby's my co-host, okay?
Our
Exactly.
fifth member of the team for the next few days. I
Yep.
love this.
Yes, he is. But I had some PTSD as far as coming here with the nerves and everything that I had for the Combine. It's just something different whenever you whenever you see stuff, you're just like, okay, I remember this. Oh, I hate this part of it. You see some of the coaches and stuff and scouts. More scouts here than I think it is coaches from what I've seen.
Really?
I hadn't seen many coaches in the hotel that we're in. We're connected to the convention center, so they may be at a different hotel, but you see a lot of scouts and just NFL personnel and stuff like that. Ran into a good bit of the Titans personnel yesterday too. So, but again, a lot of faces I'm not familiar with because they're regional scouts for the most part. So we got a lot of that up here right now.
Did you have a good dinner?
Coach Mack took us to a place that's no, it was Mike Keefe actually. This place Nada, I think. And
Strong.
Oh,
yes,
yeah,
I believe that is
Nada.
here also.
yeah, so that's what I had heard. They told me it's also one in Nashville. Strong, 10 out of 10 would suggest is where I'm at right now. 10 out of 10 would suggest. Simple, good, clean, and just they get you in and out. 10
Good
out of 10 would
margaritas
suggest. I didn't have a marg. I didn't have a marg yesterday. Did not have unmarg.
You called it a
yesterday.
marg.
I did.
That's a win for me. That's a win. That's one of the original arguments we had on this show. And I'm
Seems
glad,
like so long ago.
like with all the other arguments, I'm glad to be right.
You said you call it a marg. You were excited. You know what's crazy? Well, I don't speak about you on my vacations and free time. I just need you to know that before I go any further.
No, you do.
okay?
It's okay.
No. See, this is why, Kirby.
Just
I
raving
can't tell.
about me.
This is why I can't tell Will stuff like this. But when we were in Arizona, I ordered me a drink from the bar or something like that. It was like a cucumber vodka lemonade or something, right? Okay, Kirby, excuse me. We were in Arizona on a little downtime. Okay, I can have a drink like that then, okay? But and Keisha was like, let me get a marg. And she was like, oh, Will is changing us.
I know.
I'm making everybody younger. Come on. What's wrong with that?
Even Brett Kern agreed with.
I know.
I
on
met
that.
Brett Kern, and he walked in, and 30 seconds later was like, by the way, you're 100% right. I was like, I know I am. I know.
You know I couldn't let you win, right?
Of
You
course.
know that's the thing. But what's even crazier, though, y'all, is on the menus now, they have marg instead of margarita.
That's correct.
Oh, do they really?
That's what in some of the
That's
places I've
impressive.
seen, they have marg. It's like MARG.
At least
They
we
put
know
the
what
E.
that is now.
At least I know. So I appreciate my young comrade teaching me the ropes of how to stay
You're welcome.
young.
It's hard being a hero out here, but I make it work. 615-737-1045 is our number. I was curious if you had the PTSD. Like, as you look around you, what do you see right now? If you could paint the picture for us from Radio Row at the Combine.
It's me in here right now. We're going to have a strong discussion after this week, too, y'all. I'm the only 6 o'clock in here. 7 Eastern,
Dang.
okay? We're going to have a conversation about programming or something in a little while. Besides that, what I will say is a bunch of media tables in here. I'm seeing all the different teams that are in here. I'm right next to the Athletic, actually, and on the other side, I can't tell who that is, but it's a bunch of different stations, some of the ones that we compete against. And that Barrett sports media thing, I see a team that was in front of us. I can go flip their table over.
Yeah,
if
did you
y'all
bring a
want to.
crowbar?
Do it.
I don't even need a crowbar for this table,
Okay.
man. I'll just go ahead and put my foot through
Just
it,
bump
okay? But what I do have memories of is these big rooms here in Indianapolis that when they used to do it, the coaches just have every player in the room, and they just grab guys and have you come talk football with them, and like 5 minutes at a time. And you want to talk about, you know how you go to parties and you see dudes up on the wall not really dancing and stuff like that? That's essentially what the big room is. They come grab you, hey, let's watch some of your tape. Where you from? You from Tennessee? Okay, let's talk about your tape real quick. And they have you break stuff down, make you watch some NFL film and stuff. It really is a cool process. It's just you don't know what you're getting yourself into. And this is what I was I had a small conversation. We'll talk about this at another point, too. This Combine, this event, isn't about how great you are as a player. It's never about, hey, man, you were awesome in college. Everything about this process, which is why I think we're seeing some guys opt out, it's about how we can knock you. And not knock you down in a demeaning way, but do you actually know how to read defenses? Like, I never forget when I told a coach that I met with, it might have been Lamas Brown, by the way, the legendary coach. He was with the Carolina Panthers, I think, at the time. Big-time offensive line player. I think he played like almost 21 years. Lamas, yeah, he did. And I'm sitting down and I'm breaking down safety rotations and who was blitzing and fire zoning and stuff like that. And he looked at me sideways and did a double take and wanted me to explain it again to him because offensive lineman, especially at the position I was playing tackle, watching the safety rock down and the other guy dropping coverage, it's just those types of things. I know I'm speaking Chinese right now, but it's those types of things that they want to check and see what you know and what you learned in college. And that's why I also say a lot of the time guys are still learning when they come into the NFL, because in college you have to go to class and you only have so much time to watch film, and then it's mostly surface level with what you know. So that learning curve is real. Athletic ability to take care of itself. But when they get you in these convention centers, they just want to see how dumb you are.
That's a way to put
Trying
it.
to get you to trip up on something simple.
Yes.
Right. 615-737-1045 is our number. Starting today at the Combine, you have got defensive linemen and linebackers going through general medical exams, their pre-ordered studies, and team interviews. You've got defensive backs and tight ends. They're doing their registration, their orientation, and team interviews. And then running backs, quarterbacks, and wide receivers checking in today and beginning team interviews as well. The big guys and the specialists begin their team interviews tomorrow. The on-field workouts do not start until Thursday.
Wow.
And that is for defensive linemen and for linebackers. So still some time before the underwear Olympics part of it begins. And until then, you're taking quizzes and you're talking with teams and doing all of these sorts of things. Coming up this morning, we've got Ben Arthur of Fox Sports at 7:20, Austin Price of VolQuest, who will take us through the details of Tennessee's win in the injunction hearing over the NCAA on Friday. He'll join us at 8:20. Ron Slay of SEC Network and 3HL will stop by at 9:20. And Ramon Foster all morning long from Indianapolis, live at the NFL Combine as we divide and conquer for the rest of this week. But coming up next, let's take a look at some of the headlines of the NFL yesterday, where the running back position is once again under the microscope. How will a loaded free agent class of running backs affect Derrick Henry? We'll talk about it next. Tuesday morning on RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast, Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Will Bowling. 615-737-1045 and streaming live on 1045 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch.
Twitch, please.
Oh,
Robert Walsh handling that in person because it is easier to silence Ramon Foster, who is in Indianapolis all week.
I thought I was actually talking. Right, I could hear myself talking, but there's like miles and miles and miles and wires between me and Bert. So
that's how it works.
Yeah, that's essentially how it works.
You
And not
didn't
really.
You have the tin can and the string that you rolled behind the Sprinter, right?
Pretty much, man. Matter of fact, I'm gonna put somebody up on the building to hold the antenna. I think that'd be a little bit better. That's how my signal will get there quicker.
Lovely. Well, you are, I would imagine, taking all of the internet connection that's in Radio Row because it sounds like you're the only person there.
Yeah, 100%. As a matter of fact, they got, I think, rules on the Wi-Fi. I'm actually on my phone
Yes,
Wi-Fi
that's correct.
right now. So, yes, I am taking all the Wi-Fi, my very own private network, okay, my own VPN here, okay? This is what I'm working with right now.
you should launch your own after what happened earlier last week. You should launch your own network, Ramon.
You know what, Kayla? Couldn't be me living in the ghetto with a phone service like that. Come on over to the other one that I use. No, I kid.
I should.
Did you guys see
should.
the olive branch that AT&T is giving people?
Tell it, Will.
$5.
Yeah,
$5 to people who are impacted.
that'll pay a piece of toilet paper for me this week.
Hey, you know what I didn't have to worry about last week? So I went into my local big box store, okay, big bulk box store, okay?
Smart.
And usually you get like just heckled and, you know, just they want to solicit their phone service to you. I tell you who didn't walk up to me this week.
Uh-oh.
AT&T didn't walk up to me this week.
They got a hat on and glasses.
Yeah, Kirby's standing up right now, twirling his thumbs like, just let all the people walk by. Yeah, they didn't, you know how they always try to sell to you as soon as you walk in those places. Well, it couldn't be my phone service.
Man, I'm living that dangerous life last week.
Hey, you spend that $5 carefully, okay, Kayla?
I will.
And make that a good cup of coffee,
Yeah.
courtesy of your friends at your cellular network.
Yeah.
So the weird thing
right.
to me about the NFL Combine, guys, is the way teams will start insulting players they like so they will fall starting this week. What was that like for you as a player, Ramon?
Man, well, I'll say this. There was a guy that pretty much did himself in like that. The 04 draft, the 2009 draft, I had to think back to it. But all I remember is one guy in particular. It was two guys, actually. Alex Boone, who self-inflicted himself also with some of the stuff he was doing out of Ohio State. He was big time. If I'm not mistaken, Alex was an All-American coming out of Ohio State, or he was one of those five-star guys going to Ohio State and wore 77 at Ohio State. When he had his pre-draft issues and stuff like that, went undrafted, actually, and found his way in the league. I think he did like 7 years. The other guy that did himself in, and I'll never forget when this happened at the Combine, we were all just like blown away. This is also at the point in which Alabama was about to start taking that walk up to that next era of Nick Saban, was Andre Smith. You want to talk about like that? That to me probably should have been an eye opener as far as like sometimes they gonna overlook talent when talent does silly or dumb things or immature stuff. The night before we were supposed to go weigh in, run, and work out, Andre Smith left in the middle of the night. He said he had and the story's out there. It's the only reason I can tell it. And heck, it's years later. So he had it was projected to be a top 10 pick, and I think he ended up being a top 10 pick. And he said he had an Escalade that was being delivered to him in Alabama, so he left the combine. So he did himself in, but still I think went number 6 or 8 to Cincinnati still. First-round draft pick still. So that was one of the main things. Like, we didn't have all the craziness of it as far as, like, the way they leaked in the media in 2009, but he was one of those guys that created headlines because of him leaving the combine, not working out, not doing anything. Then he goes to Alabama and run that 40 with his shirt off, and y'all seen the images.
Yeah.
Exactly. That made up for it.
Surprising thing was it wasn't a Dodge Charger he was being given if he's at Alabama.
You know, back then I think the Escalade had just turned into the truck bed and everything, so he had one did up for him, and he said he had to go receive it, which somebody else could have did that.
Sure.
Crazy.
I just feel like there's so much going on now with the Combine in terms of storylines that people try to make make something, right? Like Mike Florio came out and said, all of these players should be flying first class. I guess there's some players that got caught in the middle seat on their way to Indianapolis this week. And so there's been some rumblings about how players are not happy with that. And I swear they're trying to find the player that makes a bigger deal out of it than the other player. I just feel like everything is now highlighted to the next level at the Combine. Now it's even getting to the Combine. There's stories out there about how these guys are in the middle seat. And Florio, again, saying that they should all fly first class.
Let me tell you this, Kayla. Okay, I played for 11 years, and if there was any a time where I had to fly back into Pittsburgh on the team's dime, they booked me a standard Southwest flight. Okay, one of the welcome to the NFL moments that I had one of my good friends make is a story I know is because it's the closest, but Marquise Pouncey was the 16th overall pick or 18th, and they ended up flying him Southwest at like a 5:00 flight to make it to his first round press conference the next day. Like, they don't care about you as a dude that has improved. You know why Florio can say that? Because that ain't his money.
Yep, exactly.
Can you imagine buying first class tickets for everybody that comes to the NFL Combine?
And there's a lot of guys.
Exactly. No, having the logistics together to actually get them here is probably more of a hassle than actually trying to, get them a ticket. Like, from the airport to the hotel might be worse. Mm-hmm. Better use them a couple dollars on that advance and get you an upgraded seat.
Well, I'm just surprised. I mean, there are probably players who are driving as well to the NFL Combine.
I did.
Yeah, well,
in a Sprinter
yes, you did. You're not a player anymore.
No, I'm serious. I was training in Cincinnati.
Of course.
And I drove up. Yeah. I drove up to the
right.
Combine.
You
you can make it regional. You can drive up if you want. They will reimburse you, too.
Oh, nice.
So you either take the flight or drive and get reimbursed.
Or you take like a really nice Uber. Would they expense you then?
That's going to be expensive.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's...
Like Ron Slay that did that one time down to... where did he go and do that Uber down all the way to Alabama or something?
He came back from Knox. He may have.
Was it Knoxville? Okay.
One of them.
Yeah, it was
one of them, yeah.
Question I have is the NFL Combine begins and essentially a convention of NFL executives begins while the Underwear Olympics starts. Will the good amount of free agent running backs help or hurt Derrick Henry? Yesterday, there was a news dump of every running back essentially being told, hey, we're not going to franchise tag you, or maybe more realistically, general managers officially telling Adam Schefter, hey, we're not going to franchise this running back. You can go ahead and tell everybody that we would love to have them back. Yet, all of them are in the exact same boat. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, Derrick Henry. You've got other running backs expected to hit free agency next month, including DeAndre Swift, A.J. Dillon, Devin Singletary, Zach Moss, J.K. Dobbins, Gus Edwards, Ezekiel Elliott, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Austin Eckler. You've got so many options. Does that hurt Derrick Henry in his pursuit of a contender to pair himself with this late in his career?
I think it does. And the reason I say this, and I guess you could look at the body of work of Derrick and the health. I think he has an advantage over a lot of these backs that have maybe dealt with more injuries along their career, i.e. Saquon Barkley, for example. But I think when you've got a flooded market of running backs who, in age vary, obviously. Ezekiel Elliott, has got a lot of tread on those tires. But at the same time, you've got a guy like Jacobs who is probably somebody who teams are interested in and feel like you have more tread on the tires. Derrick Henry is right in the middle for me because he has been a durable back, no doubt about it. He had that 1 foot injury that 1 year, and other than that, he's been able to stay healthy throughout the season. But I don't know if he's a fit compared to some of these other guys in, a franchise. And so I almost feel like he could have a better chance of coming back to the Titans in this situation than going somewhere else with the flooded market of backs out there, just because, the Titans know what they have in Derrick Henry. But I think he's right in, towards the top, but I would say it's a little more difficult now with all these names. I mean, my goodness, Gus Edwards, like you said, DeAndre Swift. I mean, this is loaded.
My issue, or I guess my concern when it comes down to Derek is this, is everybody speaks so high of Derek that I don't know if they're actually telling the truth and that's what they're going to do, or is it going to be opposite for me? I think it's somewhat I think Derek is in a league of his own. Derek is going to have to go to a team and be under an offensive coach and a scheme that can actually block and make room for him. Like, whoever Derek signs with has to have a strong offensive line. Unless something changes with his running style and how he grabs the ball and go and attack, those are the things that he has to look into whenever it comes down to what team he selects and who's going after him. I don't know if people are just mesmerized by what he's done and what he can continue to do, and everybody calls him this avatar. Everybody calls him an alien when it comes down to what his career has been and how you somewhat view him. His age can be a concern, but everybody still says, well, I don't know if Derek is going to slow down. He's different from everybody else. Those are the concerns that I have when it comes down to what they will actually do versus what they actually say. The issue with Derek is this, is there is a lot of guys in this of running back free agency that have a whole lot to give, I feel like, than he did. When you talk about guys like Josh Jacobs can catch the ball, when you talk about Tony Pollard can catch the ball, when you talk about Austin Eckler, dual-style running back, even Clyde Edwards-Helaire has some shiftiness to him. Heck, we talked about Zach Moss and the things that he ended up doing to the Titans when they played him the first time up here in Indy. Think about those types of things. Derek somewhat can be one-dimensional. So when you say, as far as where offenses are and what's the expectation of a guy like him, it has to be very offensive specific for a dude like him. I think it muddies the water for a guy like Derek, but here's the thing. Derek has the legend of DH22, King Henry, however you want to call his name. So there's always going to be value there. I just don't know how much valuable he is considering everybody else that's been let go. Saquon Barkley, to me, is probably, of this group between him and Tony Pollard, the two best running backs in this free agency class. That ain't no slight towards Derek. It's just that, to me, they offer just a little bit more to their game than he does when we're talking about having a first, second, and third down back. Those are the issues that Derek runs into. He's going to give you first down. He's going to give you second down. And sometimes on those first down runs, you're going to find yourself in second and 11 because teams attack him a certain type of way. You get Derek before he gets started, then it becomes problematic for your offense. I like him. I don't think he's going to slow down, but he can slow you down offensively if you don't have the guys up front or the ability to just say we're going to rep out runs. I don't know if he need an option quarterback to help him in the backfield. Baltimore, Dallas, those types of teams. But, heck, now you even have Saquon Barkley's camp saying, can you imagine Saquon Barkley and Lamar Jackson in the backfield together? So now Derek has competition, at least from a PR position as far as Saquon Barkley goes. Like, that to me is something I never imagined. But y'all know how New York media works. Y'all know Saquon Barkley is one of those savvy guys in the media also as far as having a team, a camp, and they're already suggesting he should go to Baltimore to be with Lamar Jackson.
NFL, of course, Friday announcing the salary cap will be a record $255.4 million per team. That's a 13.6% increase over last year's cap. The tag for running backs, $12.1 million. And the players who were reported to, again, not be tagged yesterday, Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard. Those were the big three. Out of those three, who is the best fit right now for an NFL team? Not for the Titans specifically, but who is the best running back on the market?
Saquon and Tony Pollard. One of the two.
How do you separate those two? What's the biggest difference to you?
Both of them coming off an ACL. I think how you separate the two is I think the explosiveness of Saquon, I think is a little bit better than Tony Pollard. But I like Tony Pollard's grinding up the middle style running and the ability to break off on you too. I like his style better, but I like the explosiveness that Saquon will give to you in the offense.
I like Saquon and I love Tony Pollard too. But I'll go with Jacobs for the fact that I think he's a little underrated. I think, sometimes you lose him in the mix over there in Las Vegas just because most of the headlines over there have been about firing their coaches and what quarterback is taking over. I think sometimes you lose sight of Jacobs and what he has been. I mean, he's been up there in terms of rushing yards for the past couple of years. I feel like he's a guy that could help a team like the Titans, could help a lot of teams that are kind of going in the direction of the type of offense that we are seeing now in the NFL that's not really lending favors to a Derrick Henry type of running style like Ramon mentioned. So I like Jacobs. I know he's more of the not talked about pick, but I think he's been more durable too. It always worries me about Saquon. Saquon is a beast, but dang, those injuries, I feel like he can never get through a full season without having some sort of an injury hindering him.
I think the positive for Derrick Henry is that he does break the rules of running backs and their lack of durability. To me, I don't think Derrick is really impacted by this running back market because he is so different. And if you wanted Derrick Henry before, I don't think the fact that Saquon Barkley is available is going to make you rethink that. Like the Dallas Cowboys and the Baltimore Ravens are fits for Derrick Henry because they want a runner in between the tackles that can pick up short yardage and open up the deep passing game for deep threat wide receivers and make their quarterback's job a bit easier. To me, I don't think that changes just because Saquon Barkley is out there. Like, how much interest do you think Baltimore is going to have in Saquon Barkley, Tony Pollard, or Josh Jacobs compared to Derrick Henry? I feel like Derrick is such an acquired taste that if you wanted Derrick Henry before, you're still going to want Derrick Henry.
My question is this, though. When we look at the algorithm or the stats of what it says about running backs and how we break them down and how they break down and the amount of reps on their bodies and them, besides D-line and O-line, the only position that gets hits every time they touch the ball or snap the ball, right? My question is this. Even with the increase in salary cap, how do you justify paying a 30-plus-year-old running back? You know what I'm saying? As far as what the stats tell you about him, you got to really be in a position to where you trust either your front office or that player. He's not had any major injuries. The injury he had is the foot, and he came back from that, right? Mm-hmm. But it does, and we're talking about not fans. We're talking about the business side of this, y'all. How confident are you that you can make it through another season with him, with what they say about the running back's age at this point in his career? I'm not sure personally. I would be, of course, seeing these other running backs in the fold. I would at least say to myself, again, let's break them down into what we're actually going to get and what they actually are asking for also.
You know, that's a great point, Ramon. I think we are just so prone to running backs hit 30, running back done, or running back already had his best year. And really, that is mostly what happens. Derrick is such a rare species, right, in that way. But that doesn't mean necessarily that other teams are going to be like, let's roll the dice and see if he actually can continue that. And then you look at a guy like Saquon Barkley, 27 years old, Tony Pollard and Jacobs, 26 years old. Obviously, way less in terms of age. So
615-737-1045 is our number. Coming up in just a few minutes, a very talented pass rusher was just released to the tune of a $26 million dead cap hit in the NFC. We'll have the conversation of whether or not he would be a fit for the Titans. And yesterday, coaches around college basketball sound off on storming the court and why it needs to be taken away from students in men's college hoop. We'll discuss that next. NFL Combine underway and veterans getting released left and right. It's RKW brewed by 8th and Rose. Tremone Foster with us from Indy all morning. Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, I'm Will Bowling. And in a half hour, we'll be joined by Ben Arthur of Fox Sports, who details his one-on-one conversation with Titans GM Rand Carthon and Titans president Burke Nihill. Some good stuff in there to get into with Ben coming up at 7:20 this morning. Guys, Shaquille Barrett has been released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. 32-year-old pass rusher this upcoming season, 31 right now. He has a dead cap hit of $27.6 million. That is a lot of money against the salary cap for a player not to play football for your team.
Yeah, good bit, man. You want to talk about this was a player when he came out and just understanding his story, the school that he came from, South Carolina State, HBCU, and watching him turn into an all-pro, I think the first 3 years of his career, I was like, man, this dude's going to take the league by storm. Oh, he's going to be a stud. And all of a sudden, the last couple of years up here in Indy, he just turned into a different person. He went from what was his Darius to Shaq and turned into a totally different person, man.
You're thinking of Darius Leonard. This is Shaq Barrett.
This is Shaq Barrett?
You're thinking of Shaq Leonard.
Golly.
I know.
This
is a 2014 undrafted outside linebacker from Colorado State, who was originally a Denver Bronco.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez.
Helped win Tom Brady a Super Bowl for Tampa a few years ago.
Yes, that one. Okay, he got released?
Yes,
Yeah.
$26 million against the cap this upcoming
Tampa?
season.
He's a two-time Pro Bowl. I mean, he's played some good football. You guys, I don't know if you remember this. He actually, unfortunately, his daughter drowned in a family pool recently, 2 years old. And so he's been through a lot of trauma, too, on top of, not knowing where he's going to land. That was a big story that came out, too, about him. I think it was a year ago or something. But I think he's been a pretty solid piece, but that's a lot of money to ask for, right?
It is. Yes, Shaq Barrett. Got you. Okay, yes, he was good in that Tampa defense when they won it. What was it, right after the COVID year, too?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
outside edge guy that got a bankroll. That is a tough with what they're about to go through in that state right there. Well, with that team, would I sign him? I don't know at this point right here because it's still going to be somewhat of a premium. You don't go from how big of a cap number is it, Will?
His number against the cap this past season was only $14.1 million, but his dead cap number is $26.6 million. And then next year in 2025, Shaq Barrett's dead cap number for Tampa is 17.4.
So that's the available dead cap. So that 26 is the full figure. So only $9 million of that is the dead cap on this season, while 17 will go on 2025.
For sure.
Interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
Spotrac just tweeted a breakdown of it if anybody's interested about it.
So the last couple of years, he's just been teetering as far as availability and production, too. If you get him, you're getting him for the veteran experience for a guy like that. Can he be helpful here in a place like Nashville? Yes, he possibly can. But, of course, you got to look at that price. If he was at 9, Rob, I'm calling you Rob, Bert. If he was at 9, Bert, you probably got to cut that down in half as far as what he's been offered at this point right now. It is fascinating, too, to see these teams release guys this time of the year. I almost feel like they understand the business model a little bit more, so why handicap guys by letting them go last minute to get into free agency? Very fascinating.
The reason why that's different from what I was originally looking at is because Mike Giannitti of SpotTrack has just tweeted out that will be a post-June 1st release at the start of the league year. So that's a $14.1 million cap figure through June 1st, with now dead hits of $17 million next year and $9 million this year. So essentially the way that you can divvy out that dead cap hit over the next 2 seasons. It does raise an interesting question, though, guys, that with the cap going up an unprecedented 13%, will now more veterans also be released because you are more motivated to say, all right, if we have this much more money, I'm more willing to take a bigger cap hit to pay someone against the cap to not play for me. Like maybe there is a scenario where more veterans are released who have bad contracts because now you have a bit more relief to pay somebody to not play for you.
Just a soft reset of the cap for certain teams.
Right.
I can see that being the case, man. And of course, I guess they know coming behind that is going to be a lot of young guys that want to see their salaries go up, too. Like I said, the issue with the money is the increase in money is guys know it's there, and teams have to understand that these young cats will negotiate. Like I said, a 1-year 3 deal now is probably going to be a 1-year $5 million deal just because of what that new number is. To your point, Will, it may be fascinating. Get a lot of those types of deals and get cheaper and younger and try to find the most production while you can in those younger guys as opposed to paying a dude like him double-digit million.
Yeah, because he's 31. So, I mean, you're getting into that kind of water of at what point does he just not have it? Because his sack production in general has gone down drastically since 2021, where he had 10 sacks. I think last year 4. So
yeah, 4.5 last season. He'll be 32 once the season starts.
Yeah, and DN is one of those positions, outside linebacker is one of those positions where you can kind of, just finesse the game a little bit when it comes down to it. I'll say this. I think when you do hit that age now, you either need to be a LeBron James of your sport as far as taking care of your health, or you find teams who are desperate like the Buffalo Bills who signed a 30-plus-year-old Von Miller to the deal, and I don't think they got any production out of Von.
Shaq Barrett still did have 41 pressures last season. That ranked him 26th in the NFL. The sack numbers go down because the snap percentage went down. Only played 58% of the snaps for the Tampa defense last year. In 2019, when he had 19 and a half sacks in one season, he played 79% of the snaps. So still a guy that can come in, be a third edge rusher for you, who you can allow to specialize on passing downs and still do a job for you. And the connection he would have to the current Titan staff would be to Laurie Locust, who was in Tampa while he was there.
I will say this, too. They got a young guy, Devin White, who I like. That's the guy I like off their defense right
Inside
now.
linebacker. Yep.
I like that.
615-737-1045. We'll get into this court storming discussion, which was a hot topic at a bunch of college hoops press conferences yesterday. We'll get to Ben Arthur at 720 as he details his one-on-one with Titans GM Rand Carthon. But when we come back, what is the question you would ask Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan today as they make the rounds at the NFL Combine? That's next as Hour 2 begins. Spring is right around the corner. Hey, are you looking to check some items off your home to-do list? Of course you are. What's going on? It's Will Bowling here from my friends at League Company. Maybe you're looking to freshen up your home's look before hosting friends and family as the weather warms over the coming months. Well, available 24/7, 365, the League Company home improvement professionals, they have you covered. From pressure washing your driveway or deck to drywall repairs, landscape lighting, painting, and more, League Company is all you need. Contact them today at 615-567-1000 or visit them online at leaguecompany.com to schedule your appointment. Maybe there's a part of your home you want to host company outside. There's been areas you haven't cleaned up quite as nicely because you haven't been able to be out in the nice weather. Well, as spring comes here in Nashville, League Company is going to help you take care of that to-do list. Drywall repairs, landscape lighting, painting, and more. League Company is all you need, and all you need to do is contact them at 615-567-1000. That's online at leaguecompany.com for all your home improvement needs this summer. League Company, all you need.
What's going on? 701. Good morning from the 1045 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Kind of, sort of, not really day one at the Combine. No drills today, but a lot of team meetings. Every position can meet with teams today, aside from the offensive linemen, whose team meetings start tomorrow. Two more high-profile draft picks will not take part in the NFL Combine. We learned yesterday as wide receivers Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver in the draft, will both wait until their pro days to be working out for NFL teams. The first player officially tagged with the franchise tag yesterday, wide receiver T. Higgins. No surprise there, carrying $21.8 million in a cap charge, but the running back position is not getting tagged. We learned yesterday a bevy of running backs, just about every big name one you could think of, none of them being tagged. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard, none getting tagged, and all will hit free agency. And the free agent pool getting a little bit deeper as yesterday the Jets released guard Laken Tomlinson, and this morning Shaq Barrett being released by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. A $15 million option bonus due next month. Instead of collecting it, he will now be a free agent. Had 4.5 sacks last year, but 45 sacks and 15 fumbles over his tenure of 5 years in Tampa Bay. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Hour number 2 starts right now on Ramon, Kayla, and Will, brewed by 8th and Roast RKW, with locations on 8th Avenue, Charlotte, the airport, and the Broadview at Vanderbilt. 8th and Roast Coffee cultivates community by the cup. You can find your favorite retail bag in every local Kroger and Whole Foods as well. We are on board the Sunflower Express this morning. That is the blend of coffee that is fueling Ramon, Kayla, and Will, at least the Kayla and Will part in Nashville, because Ramon Foster is in Indianapolis. This has got notes of syrupy cocoa, cherry, and toasted almond. This is an espresso blend. So we are wide awake, caffeinated, and opinionated here in the beautiful Music City.
If you ever want to know the effectiveness of the coffee we're drinking, listen to my 6 o'clock update and then listen to my 7 o'clock update. And the difference is tangible, and that's all I'm going to say.
Proven winner, 8th and Roast.
Hey,
I'm saying.
Kayla, we just had one of your former homies here, Bo Bishop, man. Come
You're
on camera.
kidding.
You were looking down at the screen the entire time. There he is right there, Kayla.
Bo,
There,
Bo.
Yep, there he is. Yep, see, Kayla?
that's my
you
guy.
over there scrolling and everything, man. She couldn't even see.
Doing work here.
So that just happened. And also, you speaking of the coffee, man, I had a mature person moment this morning.
Oh.
I sat outside the hotel barista and waited for it to open up, y'all. I was like, I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing, the fact that I feel like I have to have coffee to get going. But it wasn't 8th and Rose. I doctored it up good enough, okay, just so you know. I feel like I'm a part of the gang here. But I waited outside a coffee shop for it to open up, just so you know. I'm in a different phase of my life right now when I'm doing that type of stuff.
Proud of you.
Yeah, that is
Thank you.
impressive.
Appreciate you guys.
What would you ask Brian Callahan or Rand Carthon in Indy at the NFL Combine today?
Me personally, it would be. I would ask a hard one today. We're getting close and it's getting more serious. How long till you guys start competing? That's where I'm at. As a team, as an organization, I think that's probably the bigger question to ask, because if you sit back and look at the roster and the breakdown of positions and the needs that you have and the guys from the old era. What happens mostly when coaches come in? They find their guys. They look for dudes that's going to fit their system. And if we're talking about O-line, we know what that looks like. We talk about the D-line needing probably another D tackle. You have some youthful guys in the room, but how many guys have actually played? Let's look at the D ends also. How did we feel about Rashad Weaver last year, the production that he got? Like Gibson last year. How do we feel about that? The off-ball linebackers conversation, the safety, the corners. Like, I think we all, before football season, I'm not trying to play a wet blanket here or Debbie Downer, but when you look at all the things that this team needs, that would be one of the questions. And I know you want to be competitive and have everything laid out in front of you, but the idea that you're going to win the Super Bowl next year, I would just ask the question, how close are you as far as being aggressive in free agency and drafting right, are you to competing? That's a big question for me.
Yeah, and that's fair, right? I mean, that's a big question for Titans fans out there. I think things can be switched around fairly quickly, but it also can take some time. And it just depends on if you're doing it the right way and your way. And that's kind of where I would ask my question, guys, is this is the first time that Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan together have been at a major event like this. Because obviously if they did not attend the Senior Bowl because they were focused on putting the staff together. So this is a big thing for them, not only evaluating players that could possibly be on their roster next year because they draft them, but building those connections together, right? And we talk about all the time how business is done down here. I think this is a really important time for these two to connect together with some of the things that are going on. So I think my question would be to them, guys, what's the biggest thing you want to get out of this combine week as a pair, right? As a people that want to collaborate or whatever words that you want to use, what do you want to get out of this week for your organization? So that's the question I would ask.
What do we think the DNA of a Titans receiver is? What kind of receiver does Brian Callahan want for his offense?
I would probably say interchangeable. Where you can move and have multiple styles, like move your Z out, move your X. Like that's where I'm at with them. If you look at Jamar Chase, he plays outside, plays inside. Same thing with T. Higgins. T. Higgins plays inside and outside too. A guy that's position flexible is what I'd almost expect out of receivers that they're looking at. Can attack the ball. All of those guys can. I know T. Higgins had his drops and stuff like that from Tyler Boyd to Jamar Chase to T. Higgins. Each one of those guys can move different positions on the field and be very flexible.
I also think that he is not afraid to look for somebody who has more of that speed factor, right? That's something that Holtz specifically pointed out, like I've mentioned before in the show, in his presser. Those were one of the characteristics of what they're looking for in this offense. So I feel like that's something that has been missing from this Titans team. I think that that's something in some capacity they need to add to this Titans roster at that wide receiver position. But yeah, I think it's definitely a thing where you're going to have a guy and guys on this roster, because you got to build depth, that are versatile as well and can do different things.
Mike in Nashville, next up on the phone line, 615-737-1045. What's up, Mike?
Not much. How you guys doing?
Great.
Good.
Good.
Hey, so if I had the opportunity to ask Rand and Callahan a question, it would be, how much of the video, how much of the tape have you watched from last year? Was our offensive line deficiency done because of coaching? Was it done because of just player talent? And if that is answered by coaching, I feel like that can get corrected and fixed really quickly. If it's done by lack of personnel, then you kind of know another avenue to go with. And same thing with the secondary. Was it because we weren't, what does he see, I guess, can kind of give us some answers.
Thank you, Mike.
Great question.
Appreciate
Good.
the call.
Like it.
I think it's a good question. How much do you self-scout and think these are players we can make work in what we want to do now, and these are guys that maybe worked in the previous system but won't now? I think Aaron Brewer is a guy that could fit into that discussion. When you watch the tape on starters from last season who you've got to make roster decisions on, who comes back and who doesn't.
Mm-hmm. Even a guy like NWI, right? We're talking about wide receivers. Does NWI really fit what this offense will be? I think that's a decent question as well.
Yeah. I do wonder if the type of player will change. Again, like you said, it seems like there has to also be a balance of, value playing guys too. Like Brewer was a great value player as far as like undrafted, putting them on the field and stuff like that. Wasn't super expensive. But Mike, that question that you asked though is very serious though, because guys can be coached to more years. I've seen it happen before where dudes were undrafted or either low round guys or either in a crossroad with their careers and get coached better and they do better. And sometimes you're just not good enough. I do wonder how they will answer that question if it comes up on, hey, we just weren't good when it comes down to how they played as opposed to saying they weren't coached well. Most times they're probably going to tell you we just weren't good. They don't usually crap on other coaches like that.
Before we get to Ben Arthur of Fox Sports on the other side, yes or no, is it possible to end court storming in college basketball this year?
This year? No.
No, not even close. And it's for this reason right here. How can you actually stop them? I mean, you can give warnings. Like they warned Vols not to run on the field, right? The court storming to me is part of the culture of college sports. And maybe I'm old, man, yelling at the sky when it comes down to that type of stuff, but it's weird energy to me with this type of stuff. It is.
And you still got to get opinions from around the entire, college football landscape. Because right now, there's obviously a few chiming in. I think this is something that will possibly have stipulations to next year, but I don't think anything will change this year. Maybe more security.
Jay Billis was saying yesterday you should detain every student who rushes the court.
Oh.
Every person who rushes the court.
Wowzer.
Good luck with that. Said you should detain and cite them before they get off the court. You should give them all a citation and detain them until they're all given a citation. Then you let them leave.
Okay.
I think he was saying that
would barricade of the exit.
That would deter people. He's not saying you should do that.
No, of course not.
But that would stop the court storming.
He said, don't let them leave and give them all citations.
Would it be like a pay citation?
Yeah.
Good luck with that because I had no money in college. Just saying.
I just don't know how you can do that. You can say that. I know stores have security out there in stores and people still steal from them. So we'll see how that works when it comes down to court storming.
Coming up next, Ben Arthur of Fox Sports had a great piece, a one-on-one interview on foxsports.com with Rand Carthon and an exclusive sit-down within that conversation with Tennessee Titans president and CEO Burke Nihill as well. Some interesting things that Ben was able to glean from the relationship between Rand and people in that building. And the one thing that stuck out when Rand Carthon interviewed for the GM job that I think is particularly interesting as well. Ben Arthur runs through all of that and more next.
There's a big Saturday night in Smashville as the Preds continue a 5-game homestand on Saturday, March 2nd. See the Preds take on the Colorado Avalanche at 5 p.m. at Bridgestone Arena. And you can also join the Preds for Kids Day also. Bring the whole family with the first 2,500 kids receiving custom Preds shoe charms. You can get tickets for the game at NashvillePredators.com/tickets. But also never miss any games when you secure your season tickets, which just went on sale for the 24-25 season. This year, the Preds are giving you a jersey with your tickets plus a ton of other great benefits. So lock in those seats at NashvillePredators.com/season tickets.
Ramon, Kayla, and Will is brewed by 8 The Roast on 104.5 The Zone RKW with Ramon Foster and Kayla Anderson. I'm Will Bowling. FoxSports.com is where you can read Ben Arthur covering the AFC South and doing a great job. He also has a great piece up now about getting to know Rand Carthon and why the Titans turned the franchise over to Rand Carthon after just 1 year as general manager. First of all, Ben, welcome and great work on this piece. I really enjoyed reading it.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me. It's good, always good when I get the chance to talk to you guys.
Well, Ben, first and foremost, what do you feel like you learned about the Titans general manager? There's a ton of good stuff in here. There's quotes from Burke Nihill. There's quotes from Rand. When you look at the entire story, what stands out to you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, like Rand, I think really through talking to Rand, you really get a sense for like that forward-thinking approach that like Amy Adams-Strunk has like been so big on really since firing John Robinson in December 2022. And you think about her quote, like just in announcing the promotion for Rand to executive vice president, talking about how, you know, this is, quote, like not my father's NFL, and, you know, the league being more multifaceted now and combining like analytics, sports science, technology with football operation. I think just in talking to Rand, you learn that he's all those things that Amy has been talking about. And look, like Rand is, you know, a big football guy, football nut. I mean, he obviously played in the NFL for a little bit, but just really seeing this other side of him to really understand like why the Titans have fallen in love with him, just from him just seeking mentorship from so many different facets and spaces across industry in this country that has really just informed how he's moved, how he's looked at leadership, how he's looked at, you know, building relationships, informed how he even deals with some of the personnel stuff and free agent signings and you know, all that, this, that, and the third. I think that's kind of the biggest thing I learned is that he's really the embodiment. Like, I think like I said, like we've heard Amy kind of like talk about this in these statements, but like just really talking to him and also getting some insight from Burke Nihill as well, you really get a feel that he's kind of like that the embodiment of that like forward-thinking leader that kind of Amy has wanted.
Ben Arthur of Fox Sports, our guest. And Ben, you wrote about this as Rand Carthon in his interview as general manager brought up the personnel executives he's worked with, and that everyone in this process brought up experience from college, their coaching influences, but Rand Carthon referenced those guys who work in real estate development, private equity, and technology. It feels like that's interesting that Rand and Burke Nihill specifically have this emphasis on making the Titans feel like a Silicon Valley Google, right?
Yeah.
Like company. Like, did you kind of get that vibe talking to them?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying, right? Like with Amy saying, like, this is not my father's NFL. Like there's definitely the whole like model of what like football operations like used to be, right? Like just all ball all the time, like you know, staying in the office all hours of the day, like sleeping in your office, and just like completely looking at like the football operation as just football. But I think over the last year and a half plus, we've really seen Amy's like footprint really start to take hold in just the direction that they want to head in, and more analytically driven, and you know, like the sports and science and technology stuff, like having those influence as well, and just really in hiring Brian Callahan too, right? Like he's the complete opposite of Mike Vrabel, just in terms of just how he views offense and predicating like team building around the passing attack and the receivers, and just really a whole different like philosophy to building like greatness in the football team, as opposed to maybe what the Titans have traditionally been known for. And again, I think Rand is a representative of that, but also, yeah, like Brian Callahan as well. And just this whole direction that they're heading in, and obviously Rand hiring, making like this first analytics, like the director of research, and I can't remember her exact title, Sarah Bailey, making that hire pretty soon after he was hired. It's a very strong philosophy shift, and I think that really came across just in talking to Rand, because that is who he is, right? But now that he is kind of the guy with total football power, this is very clearly the direction that they're headed in.
Ben, when you have that conversation with Rand, man, it was super fascinating and talking with him that you're getting somebody that's savvy in the on the business side, as you just said. But I have to ask you also, because what matters is what happens on the field. You get a strong sense of football, too, in that conversation, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I kind of alluded to it kind of in the beginning of this story as well, like how he's looking at building that relationship with Brian Callahan and his staff. Like, obviously you need the whether it's the talent or the physical attributes that Callahan or Denard Wilson or just whoever's on the coaching staff, like getting the right talent with the right physical attributes for them, but also finding the right players who are going to mesh with like the systems that the coaches want to put in place. Like he talked about getting to a point with Kyle Shanahan to knowing not only like, okay, this is like the player for you just from a football standpoint, but are you going to like him, right? Like, is he going to play to the standard that you want? Is he going to interpret information how you want? And that kind of, when we talk about like Rand's more savvy approach to like leadership and whatnot, but that has really, that lends itself into kind of getting the right personnel for Brian Callahan, because it's not just from a football standpoint, like exactly what Brian Callahan wants, but he also needs to understand what the kind of like the mental approach, the mindset of the players he's bringing in, that and making sure that those guys align with the way, Brian Callahan wants this football team to look. And so that comes across as well. And so there are a lot of examples like that came in my conversation. And just in terms of like how he looks at like kind of building relationships with the players more specifically too, like something Burke told me, and this didn't make it into the story, but like there were a lot of examples this past season where maybe a player was frustrated, coming off the practice field or whatever happens. And Rand would kind of take that player off to the side, have his arm around his shoulder and just kind of telling that player, whoever it was, like what they needed to hear based on just their personality and kind of information and like how it's said, like how they, the kind of information that they best respond to and the way it's delivered, I mean. And so yeah, I mean, that's something Rand said. I mean, he knows at the end of the day, this is a results business and bringing in the right talent. And, but I think just for this story, I think it was important to really understand holistically who Rand is, especially because like, that Mike Vrabel shadow is kind of gone, right? Like Rand is running this ship now. And so I think really understanding, why he is the way he is and how that informs everything he does was kind of an important insight to bring to the table.
Also, when you had that conversation with Rand, does he understand from a football perspective where they are and what's next for this team also?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
I said, as far as having that conversation with Rand, does he understand where this team is and what he's up against as far as rebuilding this squad also?
Yeah, I mean, he definitely – I mean, we didn't have a ton of, direct conversation about that. I mean, we talked about just like the elevated pressure of his role, so to speak, right? Like adding executive vice president to the role, like having the oversight of Callahan and, final say over the 53 and what that means. And really how he's not really looking at the job, any differently, right? He's still kind of approaching the job the same, but there's definitely an elevated sense of pressure and responsibility, right? Like he was hired in January of last year. It's been only 13 months, and it's like now he's like the figurehead of like what this new era of the Titans is going to look like, and there's a lot of pressure that comes with that, right? There's, what's the leap that his rookie class from last year is going to take? Like, who is he going to draft like this year to come in and be instant impact rookies? Like with all this cap space they have, right? Being fourth in the league in cap space, I think 78 million plus under the 2024 salary cap. Like the tremendous opportunity that there is in that, but also the pressure in making the right moves and the right guys for this team, and the development of Will Levis and all these things. I definitely get the sense that he understands the gravity of the moment and this situation, and that he's up for the task. And I think just with Brian Callahan, when we hear them talk about like kind of how they're on the same wavelength, they truly are. Like, Rand has talked about like how, like talking to Callie, it's like he's looking at a mirror of himself. And so them together almost kind of embracing this pressure and Callahan, in Callahan's case in particular, coming after a coach, despite the issues Mike Vrabel had in the end, but was ultimately very successful in this city and for this franchise, and coming in with no play calling experience and being a younger guy. And, I think all these things kind of play a factor into this pressure that kind of I know they feel, but also that there's a sense that they want to make this thing right, and that they feel that they're up to the task.
Ben Arthur covering the AFC South for Fox Sports. Ben, so clearly we've got a newcomer in a GM and a newcomer in a head coach. And I think there's a lot of people out there that may have a little bit of worry that this is first time kind of stuff, right? What gives you from this conversation just that like assurance that Rand Carthon is going to be able to handle all of this if there is something that comes their way, right? If there is things along the way that pop up, and we know it's the league, it always happens. What do you think he draws from his experience the most? Like, was that his time at the 49ers where he can really say, I will be able to handle this?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of things, Kayla. I mean, it's definitely, the time with the 49ers is definitely a big one. I mentioned in the story how one of like the front office people on the business side, Parag Marathe, I don't think I'm pronouncing that right, how he's played a big influence on him, but obviously Lynch and Shanahan, and kind of seeing how they worked through issues that they had and shortcomings and, like failing on Trey Lance, right? But also finding a guy like Brock Purdy who, like, if it wasn't for Brock Purdy, I don't know where, like, the 49ers leadership, their football leadership as is would be if they didn't find Brock Purdy, right? Like, so it's things like that, seeing how those two have built their relationship in San Francisco to create this mega successful NFC contending team year in and year out. Rand is definitely drawn on those experiences. He's been around Les Snead, who's the GM of the Rams. They have a Super Bowl as well, and like I don't get the sense, like again, kind of to my previous point, I don't get the sense that Rand is like shying away from this moment at all, and he knows the hard the just kind of all the difficulties that come with this, right? Like the criticism, the people not really understanding like what's going on or what you're doing, and I just sense that he's not afraid of kind of like stepping into this, and I think something he did say more football specific, like in terms of personnel stuff, like he talked about, like just kind of the tough conversations that have to be had with whether it's like we're going to release you or like we're not maybe going to be able to pay you what you think you're worth, or just these specific conversations with players, and just Rand telling me like just him knowing that like in these conversations with players, like they can never tell him that that he lied to them, right? Like he's always going to be truthful about the situation or the reality of the situation that he's working with, and proceed as necessary. So like if a guy, eventually leaves or gets cut or whatever, and maybe he hates Rand, that said player maybe hates Rand, but from Rand's perspective, like you'll never like be able to tell, you'll never be able to say that I lied to you, and that's really important to Rand, and that goes back to the whole relationship thing too. But so I think all those things, Kayla, are like examples, and kind of like how he's trying to look at this kind of new elevated role, like with the Titans.
Ben Arthur of Fox Sports, covering the AFC South, has been our guest. Check out his piece on foxsports.com in a exclusive conversation with Rand Carthon and Burke Nihill. Ben, we appreciate it as always. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Ben.
All right, there's Ben Arthur with us this morning as we continue coverage where Ramon is in Indy at the NFL Combine. We'll have him set the scene for us there in Indianapolis. Take a look at a trio of SEC hoops contests tonight where one ranked team is an underdog on the road to the SEC tonight. We'll talk about it next.
I think we're all getting excited because spring is right around the corner. It is that time to enjoy life. Stop letting that pain in your joints keep you from doing what you want to do this spring and summer. Call QC Kinetics now. QC Kinetics is the nation's leader in regenerative medicine, and I'm talking about joint pain relief. Not a Band-Aid, something that you don't have to go and get surgery on, no drugs, and no downtime. It is a fact. QC Kinetics is literally transforming people's lives. Their advanced treatments actually harness your own body's ability to restore and repair that damaged tissue. So, pro athletes, they've been doing this for decades, but now this life-changing treatment is available for you. QC Kinetics has tens and thousands of satisfied patients who have reclaimed their mobility. They're able to do all the things they want to do in life. So take action now and live your best life this spring and summer. It's a great use also when it comes to your tax refund check. So call QC Kinetics today for a free consultation, 615-249-4024. That's QC Kinetics at 615-249-4024.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Ramon, Kayla, and Will. And coming up in 15 minutes, we'll take a look at the prospects ESPN's Matt Miller says have first-round grades. Says he gives his first 2024 class grades out. Handed out 20 first-round grades in 2023. He's got 16 players with first-round grades in 2024. We'll go through that coming up here at 15 minutes. 615-737-1045 is our number. Men's college hoops tonight, 6 o'clock on ESPN. Kentucky at Mississippi State. It's interesting to me, guys, that Kentucky can score 270 points against Alabama over the weekend and then go on the road to Starkville and be an underdog. Mississippi State is a 3.5-point favorite to beat the 16th-ranked Wildcats.
Ooh, I did not know that.
Is that because of, they play a slower game? They play more defense? Because Mississippi State
just playing on the road.
It's just on the road in the SEC.
I think that's all it is.
Dang.
Duke was an underdog going to Wake Forest, as we talked about the storm. The court storming and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. That's the case for a team like Kentucky, who's been fire hot as of late.
And this is what I want to see from Kentucky, honestly, you guys. I want to see, okay, is it just something where they're going to have these big-time games where we're all sucked back in, or is it something where now they're going on the road, it's a tough environment in Stark Vegas, and they actually prove, like, we're consistent. We can be this team that we're supposed to be. I always like these kind of games where you're coming off high scoring and getting all that praise. Now how do you respond? Like, do you take care of business when you really need to take care of business? So I'm looking forward to seeing how they respond.
Tennessee ranked number 4 in the most recent AP poll. The Vols have been ranked for 55 consecutive weeks in the AP poll. That shatters the previous program record of 37 weeks. That is also the third longest active streak in the nation, where Tennessee has been ranked nonstop since the start of the 2021 and 2022 season. Do we think Tennessee, with a 2-0 week this week, could move themselves up to the number 1 seed line?
Can they move up? Yeah, that's a possibility. But, of course, I think the Vols are going through the same situation that Kentucky is somewhat going through, too. Being able to stay at the top of the hill after a revenge game they had against A&M. I like the idea that the Vols can, of course. Each team this time of the year is going to drop a game. Ron Slay has conditioned me to be a guy that understands, hey, look, basketball is a weird sport. I think football is weird, and Savage tells me all the time basketball is a weird sport when you come down to discussing wins and losses, because a lot of the time it may be matchup. And, of course, I'm not fluent with what Mississippi State Bulldogs have going on in Starksville, but what I will say this, for them to be an underdog type of team, Kentucky that is going down there, that tells me the story that I think Ron will tell. It may be a matchup situation that has Kentucky losing this upcoming game.
Yeah, I think Tennessee has a chance, guys. I mean, first of all, anything can happen in college basketball, especially these last few weeks. You look at who they are facing down the stretch. I mean, you've got Auburn, you got Alabama, you got South Carolina. Look, Tennessee's RPI is up there. And Tennessee has played one of the more difficult schedules. I feel if they finish strong, even if they get, 2 of those wins, they could very well be in the mix. It's right on the line for me, but there's not a non-possibility of them possibly being a number 1 seed, depending on what happens around them.
According to Joe Lenardi, there is a wide gap as of late last week between the 1 seeds and the 2 seeds. So it's going to take quite a bit for Tennessee, I think, to move up to the number 1 seed line. He wrote yesterday on his Tuesday update, or Monday afternoon update going into Tuesday's games, that Purdue, UConn, and Houston are in a virtual tie for the number 1 overall seed at this point.
Wow. Interesting.
So he's got the first 4 out as A&M, Villanova, Utah, and Colorado. So Texas A&M now falls out of the field after their loss over the weekend to Tennessee, and the last 4 in as Seton Hall, Virginia, Providence, which is former Tennessee assistant Kim English, the head coach now of the Friars, and Gonzaga as the last team in.
Can I be honest about something? Look, the Zags been a great team, made the tournament year after year after year. I'm not going to lie, guys. I don't think they really deserve this year to be in the tournament. Now, if they win the WCC, that's an automatic bid for them. But because it's Gonzaga, I think he still has them on, the final four in. I don't really feel like they're deserving of it. And I'm somebody who, roots for the Zags. So
Yeah, we'll see. Should be interesting to see if they can steal a bid. I guess A&M fans will be cheering for everyone else, maybe in the West Coast Conference. That way they don't steal a bid.
And Will, you said it was I got to correct you on something. You said it was a beating. Tennessee beat A&M on
I did say
Saturday.
that, yes.
No, it was more like a power bomb. It was more like a beat down. It was more like sending them to the pit of misery, Will. Okay, you hit us in the face first. Okay, we will run you over with a bulldozer. That's what happened. Okay, tell the story correctly. Okay, you being
Fair enough.
Thank you. Okay, at least you owned up to it. Call it what it was, okay?
The rest of SEC hoops tonight, it is Georgia at LSU, 6 o'clock on the SEC Network. Vandy at Arkansas. A battle of a 2-12 SEC team and a 5-9 SEC team at Bud Walton Arena. Tickets as low as $5, ESPN.com tells me.
Man, you take a $20, you take a 20 piece in there, you can get you a hot dog.
You can
and a Coke,
take
too.
the $5
My
AT&T gives you, and you can buy a ticket to Vandy, Arkansas.
my AT&T voucher.
That's innovation that excites, is what that is. 615-737-1045. Coming up in hour 3, Austin Price in just over 20 minutes will detail Tennessee's fight with the NCAA and how the injunction hearing and the injunction that was granted to the state of Tennessee changes the NCAA's investigation into Tennessee football. But when we come back, there are 16 players, according to ESPN's Matt Miller, who have first-round grades. How many of them are wide receivers? We'll talk about it next.
So the good news is we're almost done with February, so we're going to get into those spring months. Maybe you're going to be able to get out more. Your body's going to feel like it's getting some exercise. But this is the time of year we're feeling a little down. Maybe we don't have that energy. And toxins are building up in our body every single day, from really the air we breathe to the food that we eat. And sometimes you can feel like you're carrying around that excess weight. That also can cause you to prematurely age, and none of us want that. And that's why you need to change your body with the Youthful Cleanse by Daily Defense. Sometimes I think people get a little freaked out when they think of a cleanse, but this is about as simple as it gets. No need to change your diet, no juices or anything like that. Just a couple of vitamins, and really you will be feeling good again. Have some more energy as you want to do the things you want to do in life. Also, at membersnutrition.com, you can also get an array of vitamins. I am on their probiotic right now, which I really enjoy. So if you want to take control of your health, take control of your life, go ahead and try the Youthful Cleanse today at membersnutrition.com.
What's going on? Just about 8 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I'm Robert Walsh. Kind of, sort of, not really day one at the Combine. No drills today, but a lot of team meetings. Just about every position can meet with the teams that are present today, aside from the offensive linemen whose team meetings will start tomorrow. 2 more high-profile draft picks will not take part in the NFL Combine. We learned yesterday wide receivers Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, the number 1 and number 2 wide receiver in this draft, will both wait until their pro days before working out for NFL teams. The first player to be officially tagged is wide receiver T. Higgins. No surprise there, carrying a $21.8 million cap charge into 2024. But the running back position is also not getting tagged. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, Tony Pollard. We all learned yesterday that they would all be hitting free agency and not receiving the franchise tag. And the offensive line free agent pool gets a little bit deeper as the Jets release guard Laken Tomlinson. They're going to clear about $8.1 million in salary cap space, but also take on about $11 million in dead money. Tomlinson started 34 games during his time with the Jets and has 138 career starts. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Ramon, Kayla, and Will, RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. Locally owned and operated by lifelong friends turned business partners who design local 8th and Roast shops as a way to feel welcomed, connected, and part of a community. We're drinking the Sunflower Express blend this morning. You can grab your favorite bag of 8th and Roast coffee at your local Kroger and Whole Foods in Middle Tennessee. It'll brighten up your morning, or you could stop by one of their 4 locations, 8th Avenue, Charlotte, the airport, and the Broadview at Vanderbilt. I probably wouldn't recommend trying to go through the airport and saying, hey, I just want to get in here, get a cup of coffee. Give me the cheapest one-way ticket possible. But if that is your pleasure, then enjoy. You'll thank us later.
I don't think I've ever been to the airport without getting 8th and Roast in the last year. It's like a staple now, right?
Usually it bothers me when we go somewhere and Cheyenne's like, can I get a cup of coffee? Do you care if I get coffee? But anytime we go to the airport, I'm like, we're going to 8th and Roast. We've got to get some 8th and Roast.
I love that Robert's voice for his girlfriend sounds like the Wicked Witch of the West.
Yes.
It sounds like someone who would have been thrown into a lake 400 years ago in Salem, Massachusetts.
And she's so pleasant. I don't know why I do that to her. I do it to my mom, too. If I do my mom's voice, they both sound the same. All the women in my life sound like that.
Cheyenne is so chill, man. And Bert just gives her this gremlin voice out of nowhere. Like, if you don't get her coffee, y'all are going on a no-flight list. This is what you make her sound like, okay?
I don't know, man. You need to hang out with her when she doesn't have coffee. We would end up on a no-flight list.
So I see her caffeinated and well took of anytime I see her, huh? I got you.
Ramon Foster with us from Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh. I'm Will Bowling. Let's go back to the phones where Dave is in Mount Juliet wanting to talk Vols hoops this morning. What's up, Dave?
What's up, Dave?
Hey, good morning, guys.
Morning.
How y'all?
Great.
Thanks for taking my call. I just wanted to call and say, man, that's the beating that we should have gave A&M down at A&M. The Vols the other day. That's the beating they should take because they're not that good, guys. And everybody's proved it. Vandy beat them. Everybody's beat them since they beat us. That game was down there was the worst referee, the worst play, the worst coach, and they proved they can beat anybody. They need to play like that, and they can beat them all. The other day when Houston won their game, they come back, let Texas come back and then won their game in overtime. That's what it's going to take. It's going to take determination to not let people beat you, and they've got the talent to do it. Mm-hmm. He had a great rotation against A&M the other day, too. He needs to keep that up. Thank you for taking my call, guys.
Thanks, Dave. I appreciate the call. I think the interesting thing about Texas A&M is they were picked second in the SEC in preseason. That's not always gospel, but Wade Taylor was picked as the preseason SEC Player of the Year. They've got great players.
Yeah.
It just has not come together for them in the way that many of us expected this year.
And it's almost like they had all this momentum after that Tennessee win down there. And if you look at what happened with the unraveling of that team, that's when it happened. And that to me is a combination of coaching and maybe having too much of a like, okay, we're good, right? And then just letting that kind of drop off. That's what I saw. You haven't seen good play from them since, really.
I had somebody ask me yesterday, man, did you get upset as a player when, fans suggested that you played down or let a lesser team beat you and stuff like that? Nobody just ever really asked that question, like how I felt as far as the fans went with that. And I was just really taken back by it because as a player, let's go as far as the Vols go, right, with them losing that game at A&M. They're not supposed to lose because they are the better team. And sometimes your opponent gets more up for games than you do. And I know that probably says to yourself, well, you shouldn't allow that to happen. That type of stuff shouldn't be allowed. But in those moments where an A&M just runs away with the game, or we see Kentucky go to Auburn and win the way they did at Auburn, like sometimes you just get punched in the mouth as a team. And there is no reeling back no matter what, because that team is just on every single point they're supposed to be on during the course of the game. And it's just fascinating in sports that type of stuff happens. I think when we had Dane Bradshaw on, he said the team that lost to, or the Vols losing to South Carolina isn't the team that they are. And they're not as good as them beating Kentucky the way they did too, even though there's the DNA in them to be on either side of it. It's just always fascinating to me to watch good teams get beat by bad teams and then come back and just pummel them the way you did against A&M this last time. Sports is a weird, finicky thing, and I think being asked that question yesterday, I take a step back with saying they played down. Sometimes bad teams play up so much that they show themselves what they're capable of without realizing that with them being a preseason number 2 pick in the SEC, they have it. They're just not a good built team this year as we thought they were going to be in the preseason.
615-737-1045, our number. Matt Miller of ESPN.com writes this week that he's tackled his list for the 2024 draft class with a strict grading scale. After handing out 20 first-round scores in 2023, he has ended up with 16 names at this point in the process, up from 14 in late December, who he feels like have first-round grades. 3 of them are quarterbacks. Caleb Williams, number 1. Jaden Daniels is his number 5 player on his draft board. And Drake May from North Carolina is number 6. No running backs and 4 wide receivers. I think the comps here are interesting, guys, and I'm curious where you all agree or disagree with these comps. So for Marvin Harrison Jr., the number 2 player on Matt Miller's board, the comp is A.J. Green. Wow. 2,474 yards, 28 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons. At 6'4", 205 pounds, the size makes sense there for Marvin Harrison Jr. He's got Malik Neighbors as the number 3 player on his board. The comp is Stephon Diggs. 14 touchdowns, little over 1,500 yards. Writes, he is explosive and ready to be an NFL wide receiver 1. And then for Rome Odunze, Matt Miller says Rome Odunze is the number 4 player in the entire draft, in his opinion. And the comp is Jamar Chase. Well, if only the Titans had a head coach who had just coached Jamar Chase for a couple of years.
No, that to me is very fascinating, man, when you're talking about Rome or the Marvin Harrison Jr. comparison. To me, I thought was very spot on. Big body guy. I think we forget how good A.J. Green was in that time. He was very, very solid. Remember the commercial? A.J. Green, he's just like you. No, he's not. He's that good, okay? But the comparison of Rome Odunze to Jamar Chase, to me, again, I told you that was how I felt about Rome Odunze. He has the ability catch the ball all over the field. He's good at catching the ball also at the high point, and that's what Jamar Chase is, a combat catcher, a guy that can get away from you, separate also, and have the ability to get some yards after catch too. I think that is a fair comparison to him. Again, he has to make it in the league and actually be that type of player, but Jamar Chase is a physical type of guy, aggressive with the ball also, and has the ability to have some yak. Man, that's spot on to me. And again, Rome is good. And if a tackle isn't there for the Titans, these three guys may be as sure if we've seen wide receivers come out in the last few years.
Yeah, I do like the comparison. I totally see parts of it in terms of a Jamar Chase. Absolutely. I don't think he necessarily has as much explosiveness as a Jamar Chase, but I would say I also look at him as being kind of like a Devontae Adams, right? And I don't think anybody would be not okay with having a wide receiver like Devontae Adams. So that's one of my favorite wide receivers in the draft. I know Malik Neighbors is getting a lot of love too, and rightfully so. But I think Odunze is solid overall.
It's interesting bringing this up because Sam Monson of Pro Football Focus told us on Friday he doesn't feel like the Joe Alt versus wide receiver argument is the same as Cincinnati's previous one when it was Jamar Chase or Penei Sewell. In this scenario, the Jamar Chase level receiver is the third receiver on the board. And Sam Monson told us, you guys are comparing the number one tackle against the number 3 or 4 receiver. Well, is it fair to say that maybe Jamar Chase would have been the number 3 receiver if he came out when he had his college resume and skill set in this draft class? If the drop-off is that big, where Matt Miller only has one more wide receiver with a first-round grade and Brian Thomas Jr. from LSU, and he says the comp for him is T. Higgins as the number 16 prospect. The last player he has, Matt Miller, with a first-round grade. If the drop-off is that big, does that motivate you to go wide receiver at number 7?
I think with the quarterback play, too, quarterbacks make wide receivers also. So if we're talking talent-wise, okay, I can deal with talent-wise. We've seen guys come into this league with a little bit less talent and make a big-time career out of it because of the quarterback and the offense that they're playing in also. Brian Thomas Jr., to me, the comparison to T. Higgins seems to be fair. Why? Because that's exactly what's happened in Cincinnati anyway when it comes down to T. Higgins being who he is as a player, too, right? Well, you also throw that on the fact, well, Jamar Chase is there. That doesn't mean that T. Higgins is not a good player or anybody else behind that too. I think quarterbacks and offenses will make wide receivers too. What is Christian Kirk, right? Christian Kirk is a very good wide receiver when it comes down to how he plays and what his expectations are too. I'm not going to lay on the fact there's a big talent gap between these top 3 and the rest of everybody else, because it does come down to the quarterback and offense is where I stand.
And I still think because this wide receiver class is so deep, we've heard it from definitely a ton of analysts this season before the draft season, is you're going to be able to probably get one in the second round where you can find someone who's going to fit what you're looking for. And now at least I feel more confident in what this staff is offensively to really make that work and make that guy become a star.
615-737-1045. Matt Miller has 3 offensive tackles that have first-round grades. That is significantly less than the opinion of many draft analysts who think 7 or 8 tackles could go in the first round. We'll get back to that in a half hour because I want to get Ramon's thoughts on the third tackle that Matt Miller has. That third tackle is a hotly debated topic in this year's draft class. He's got a right tackle. That's his number 1 guy, or number 3 guy, number 1 after Olu Fashanu and Joe Alt. We'll get back into that at 8:45. But coming up next, he is Austin Price of VolQuest, the authority on Vols coverage. What's most significant about the injunction and the reasoning why Tennessee beat the NCAA in federal court last Friday? Austin Price joins us to discuss that and more next.
It's Ramon Foster for Genesis Diamonds, man. They are having a huge Rolex event this upcoming weekend. Your chance to get that rare, hard-to-find luxury timepiece. It starts this Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Genesis. They're hosting an epic pre-owned luxury Rolex event featuring a stunning new selection of hard-to-find Rolex models. All the hottest models that people wait years for are so. These are carefully chosen timepieces in pristine condition. During this event, you can take advantage of special pricing and 0 interest financing. And listen to this. With the purchase of any luxury pre-owned Rolex at this event, Genesis will give you a pair of 2-carat lab-grown diamond stud earrings free. That's a $4,000 value, all right? Also for this event, Genesis pre-owned Rolex buyers are on site offering top dollar for your Rolex so you can buy, sell, or trade. So come see the largest selection of luxury pre-owned Rolex watches in the state and take advantage of special financing and get a pair of 2-carat lab-grown diamond stud earrings for free. It's Thursday, Friday, and Saturday at Genesis Diamonds only. Your home for luxury pre-owned Rolexes. They're located in Green Hills and Cool Springs.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Rose with locations on 8th Avenue, Charlotte, the airport, of the Broadview at Vanderbilt. 8th and Rose Coffee cultivates community by the cup. From Indianapolis, Ramon Foster. We've got in studio here in Nashville, Kayla Anderson. I am Will Bowling. And joining us on the phone lines for his weekly Tuesday visit on the show, he is VolQuest's Austin Price. Good morning, Austin. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you all doing?
Good. Good morning.
We're great, and we've got an injunction decision from Clifton Corker and the East Tennessee federal judge last week. What is most significant about the reasoning, the decision, Austin, and how surprised were you that we got a decision so quickly?
I wasn't surprised. I thought it would come within 2 weeks. I thought there was a chance it could have pushed into early this week, but, Friday got it done, and not surprised about the verdict. I think anybody I'm not a legal person, but anybody that was kind of in the courthouse that day, if you just read how things were phrased, body language, kind of just common sense reaction stuff, and be able to read people, you could tell that, the attorney for the state of Tennessee, Attorney General, got stronger and stronger and stronger. His closing argument about the NCAA wouldn't enter into a television contract agreement with, one of the networks without knowing, what offers were out there, was really, really strong. And I thought the NCAA lawyer kind of fumbled, so to speak, whether kids could or couldn't speak with a collective ahead of time just to kind of get, a roundabout. Like, somebody, amongst your stature has made this here before, without saying, hey, you're going to make X. And he kind of just talked in circles, and I thought that that was going to open itself up to, what happened, and, the state of Tennessee wins the injunction, and now, where do we go from here? Does it make the trial? Does the NCAA pivot? Here, I mean, if you go to discovery, if you go to trial, then, once that thing gets written into firm law and not just an injunction, all of a sudden you see these other cases that the NCAA is trying to handle, like them, the one out in California and so on and so forth. All of a sudden there's a precedent there, makes it much tougher for them to win those cases, if they can win those cases anyway.
Austin Price of VolQuest and On3, our guest. Austin, do you expect the NCAA to still give Tennessee a notice of allegations?
Well, normally it comes really quick after they have their little summary meeting to kind of go over everything, and it never came because, obviously the state of Tennessee sued the NCAA, and I think that kind of threw them into a little bit of a tailspin there. And, I'm not sure we ever see the notice of allegations. I mean, is it possible? Sure, they could still send it. But, so much of the stuff that they're trying to retroactively punish Tennessee for wasn't even a guidance, much less a rule when any of the stuff happened. All that now is thrown out with the ruling by Judge Corker. So I'm not sure we see them throw, what they tried to, present to Tennessee at Tennessee.
Austin, as far as Tennessee goes with this, when it comes down to high school recruits, their parents, handlers, collectives, whatever you want to call them these days, when it comes down to the initial conversation, is it now just more of a open door conversation like, hey, how much am I getting before I sign?
Well, I mean, nobody really wants to do a lot of the paying before they sign. Like, I know there's some states that, have, the high schools allow that to happen. But, schools don't really want to get into that if they can avoid it. And, I think that, each situation is different. But I do think that a lot of times this is more like, hey, once you get here, kind of this is what, we're thinking your NIL value is based off of metrics and all that stuff that they try to, use to try to determine, what a kid's value is. I think that's like an impossible task. Like, what is the value of someone? I mean, like, the value is, 10 schools may say the value is, $5, and then one other one says his value is $25. Well, what's his value? His value is $25 because the one school would do that, right? So, I think that it just opens up to have a little more open dialogue, the gray area, the the hypotheticals kind of go out the window, so to speak, now, and they can just kind of talk a little more freely and not, all these schools have been talking to these kids during the recruiting process. Sometimes it's coaches, sometimes it's collectives, sometimes it's both. But everybody's trying to act like everybody has been acting like this stuff didn't go on when it did. Now it can just go on, and they can negotiate and kind of figure out what their value is at each school.
Austin, I have to ask this one too, because now we know it's above board essentially with these negotiations. Will we see a situation to where these NILs will start to hold these prospects, to the fire as far as like the contracts that they do sign? Like, will we see a mandated 2-year commitment or 3-year commitment when it comes down to the amount of dollars that's being paid out, the commitment to the university and the relationships that you're trying to build? And also, we have this because you're trying to sustain winning. Do we see a situation where guys will be locked into contracts and teams, essentially a pro model?
I think you'd have to have some legislation. I think you'd have to have some guidelines and rules to follow first. I think that sounds great what you're proposing, Ramon. But right now, currently, you have, the transfer model where you can just transfer at will and do it as many times as you want and all that. And then you have the NIL model, which is, kids can negotiate and, get the best deal for them. Problem is, that doesn't set up to do what you're wanting to do. I think what you're, recommending or suggesting is a really good idea, right? Like, you let them negotiate, but once they enter into an agreement, they've got to stay so long, right? Problem is with the ruling in the West Virginia case back in December about the 2-time transfer, that kind of opened up Pandora's box for there to be a constant negotiation amongst collective schools and the players.
Austin Price, so kind to join us this morning of VolQuest here on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Austin, let's talk a little combine since it is happening right now up in Indianapolis. Kamal Haddon, Jalen Wright, Joe Milton, 3 Vols that are up there. Who can gain the most this week out of those 3?
I'm gonna go Kamal Haddon.
Okay.
Kamal Haddon had a really nice year up until he got injured. I think he can really kind of rise. Now, who do I think is going to get drafted the highest? It's going to be Jalen Wright.
Yeah.
I think he can, with a good showing, can rise up. But I think Kamal Haddon could go, from late round to mid to, I'm not going to say first day. I don't think that's realistic. But could he slide into day 2 with a super strong performance? Yeah, maybe. He's got the length. He's got really good tape, and so like for Kamal Haddon, I think he has the most to gain from a strong showing. I think Jalen Wright's already thought of pretty highly amongst NFL, GMs and teams, and I think with a strong performance, he can definitely be a day 2 pick, and which for a running back is extremely strong.
Austin, when it comes to Joe, is this just the time we kind of say, hey, it is what it is, and look, if he draws attention at the combine for the arm that he has, which everybody always talks about, I think we have to look more into like the person he is, which we know he's a great leader. Like, how can he benefit in any way from the combine to be a guy that could go, maybe 5th, 6th round?
Well, he's going to test extremely well, Kayla. He's got all the physical attributes you could want. And so, like Kayla Williams is not going to throw at the combine, I guess.
Right.
If I'm Joe Milton, I'm throwing every time they let me, because you have more to prove, and you can't sit back and go, I'm not going to throw here. I'm just going to wait on my pro day. Like, I think you have to kind of be willing to show what you have at any turn. And so I think for Joe, his ability to rise is based off of him being willing to do that, and then performing at a high level when he tests. Because I do think he's going to run well, he's going to jump, he's going to have extreme strength and arm strength and all those physical traits. But it's the ability to do certain things that they're looking for. I think that's what will make or break where he gets drafted at.
Austin Price of VolQuest on 3, our guest. Austin, switching to the hardwood for this Tennessee team right now, how far away do you feel like they are from a number 1 seed, and what will it take to get on that top line?
I think if they go 3-1 in their next 4, I mean, no one's expecting them to go 4-0. I mean, they're all quad 1 wins if you win those. They can go 3-1 in the next 4, and then, depending on what everybody else does around them, I think that Tennessee's strength of schedule has to kick in at some point. I mean, my goodness, like if you look at just the losses Tennessee has, they're so strong. I mean, like these teams are all ranked in the top 15, top 10, top 5. So, and most of them are back, before Christmas. So, yeah, I think for my liking, I think it's just closing strong. Again, I don't think you have to go 4-0, but I think you need to win at least 3 to get on that, to get that number 1 seed. And again, I think a lot of that also depends on what the other teams that are vying for the number 1 seed do around you.
Austin, with 800 wins for Rick Barnes, you look at some of the things he's been able to do at Tennessee. Vols have been ranked in the top 5 of the AP poll 24 times in the last 6 seasons. They had been ranked in the top 5 17 times in the previous 70 seasons and 70 years of the AP poll. Just how do you sum up the culture change of Tennessee hoops that Rick Barnes has been able to facilitate over time and the successes? What stands out to you the most about what he's been able to do?
Well, I mean, he just wins. I mean, I know he hasn't won big in the tournament like everybody wants, but I mean, I'm old enough to remember when Tennessee basketball on the men's side was terrible. And then they had a nice little run where they made the tournament sometimes, but then there was total inconsistency there. Bruce came in, had a nice run, then more inconsistency. Like anytime you can have sustained success, I think if you're a fan or even if you're just watching it, you have to appreciate, what he's done. He's done it his way. He started off, with kind of the non-Kevin Durant type player and started just building and building and building and developing. Now he's cherry-picked some of those highly thought of players, those 5-star type players into the process the last handful of years. But on the whole, he's done a really good job of getting players like Tobe Awaka, like, Zakai Ziegler, who are going to be 4-year players. And, those guys are all really, really solid basketball players that just kind of ingrained themselves into Rick Barnes's universe here amongst basketball at Tennessee, and they buy in, and they've had a lot of success because of it.
Austin, with Vols commit George McIntyre getting his 5-star designation, big time get for the Vols and for him also. Who else is on the recruiting radar as that starts to pick up a little bit more as the year goes on?
Well, we're right now at the tail end of a dead period. Things open back up, first of next week, so you'll start seeing kids get to campus. Tennessee's, expected to have several big-time kids in the month of March and April for spring practice, the big weekend being March 23rd, which is the first full weekend after spring practice starts on the 18th. And, there'll be, other visitors sprinkling in here and there and everywhere. But Tennessee's big focus, offensive tackle, that's a big one. Defensive line, and then obviously already having George in the boat already helps. So, Joakim Dodson, who's now a Baylor wide receiver, is in the boat, and Tennessee would love to add the 2 other in-state receivers that are really highly thought of, that being Cam Sparks out of Chattanooga Baylor and Radarius Jackson out of the Memphis area. So, for George, he's got to continue to build around him on a national level and an in-state level, and he's done a really nice job of that. And, right now there's nobody expected to commit this week or next, but I think Tennessee is got a big month ahead to kind of position themselves heading into spring and summer decisions.
Austin,
go ahead.
Sorry, Austin, I want to go back to basketball really quick. Is Zakai Ziegler, after that Missouri loss, was not happy, obviously, with himself and how he played. And just, I feel like the response that a lot of these players have, taking accountability individually, makes this team different too. In a world in college basketball where we're seeing upsets every single night, I feel like this is what also is making this team special this year, is that kind of accountability on this team.
Yeah, I mean, you go back to that South Carolina game. I think he had 2 points, and I rember being there, and Jeff Jarnigan, who does PA for basketball and football for that matter. He's kind of going over the leading scores, and it was so and so 2, so and so 2, so and so 2, Dalton Connect 31, and so but it was more than just 3 twos. It was like 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, I think a lot of those players kind of, it was a wake up call for them, and they lost to Texas A&M since then, and that was a game where he and the others didn't play great, didn't play terrible, just didn't play well enough. But I mean, he's been fantastic ever since, and really, I mean, if you go back to December, that's when you kind of felt like he was fully healthy, and he's been fantastic on defense. His ability to get in the paint and fit passes to the posts in tight windows is fantastic. And, I think he's shooting the 3-ball better this year than he's ever shot it. So, he's really playing at a high level.
We get the best info on Tennessee from our good friend Austin Price of VolQuest every Tuesday morning at 8:20. A VolQuest subscription, a must-have if you are a Vols fan. Austin, we appreciate the time as always. Thank you.
Definitely.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thanks,
Yes,
Austin.
sir. There's Austin Price with us this morning. They've got a Vol Club confidential interview up with Christian Moore of Tennessee baseball as well. So it's just incredible looking at those stats specifically, and the one I brought up with Austin about Tennessee being in the top 5 of the AP poll 24 times in the last 6 seasons. And in the 70 years before that, they had been in the top 5 17 times. Right. Rick Barnes has had Tennessee in the top 5 more in the last 6 years than in the 70 years before it. So it's important perspective, I think, for Tennessee fans to remember if you have a difficult loss at Alabama or at South Carolina or even at home to Auburn or Kentucky over these last few weeks, you are in as good a spot as Tennessee basketball has been for a 6-year span in a long time and probably ever.
That's where I sit sometimes with fans as far as trying to figure out where is the line with appreciating the day-to-day operation, like winning and being ranked in the top 5, and the hard conversation of, okay, well, when are you going to win us the championship?
Yeah.
That's always the biggest next step, and I think people think that it's easier than it actually is. But I like I said the other day when we talked about the night game they had against A&M at TBA, appreciate what that is, because that doesn't come often when you can flex your muscle and create a big show with pyro and explosions and night games and sellouts and checkerboard TBA. Appreciate it is where I'm at with it.
Our question of the morning at Ramon Kayla Will on Twitter. If you could talk with Brian Callahan or Rand Carthon at the Combine today, what would you ask him? We've got a half hour to take your calls on that. 615-737-1045 before Ron Slay of 3HL and SEC Network stops by at 9:20. That's right. But coming up next, you'll hear more from ESPN's Matt Miller, who wrote on ESPN.com about the 3 tackles he feels have first-round grades and why the third one is similar to Tennessee's Darnell Wright from last year. We'll get to that next. Tuesday morning continues on Ramon, Kayla, and Will. RKW is brewed by 8th and Rose. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. With Ron Slay of 3HL and SEC Network coming up to talk Vols hoops in a half hour. We've been going through this piece from Matt Miller of ESPN.com on the 16 players he gives first-round grades to. Ramon Foster, he says Joe Alt is the number 1 tackle, has him as the number 8 prospect in the draft, and the comp is Andrew Thomas, New York Giants left tackle and former Georgia Bulldog. You okay with that?
I'm okay with that. Not overly physical guy that gets the job done, had to grow into the role. Remember, we had that same conversation about Alt. There will be an adjustment for a guy like him, especially on the physical side. And it's the same thing as he was up in Andrew Thomas.
Second tackle for him, no surprise, Olu Fashanu of Penn State. He's got him as the number 11 player in the draft. On the back end of his first-round grades, the comp for him, Teron Armstead, saying the 20-year-old started 20 games over the past 2 seasons. He has the tools to become a top 5 NFL left tackle. Interesting, though, that Matt Miller has Tale Fuaga of Oregon State as his number 12 player. He thinks the drop-off is minimal from Olu Fashanu to Tale Fuaga and says as soon as Fuaga made his 2024 draft intentions known, he became a round 1 player for me. 6'6", 332 pounds. He's a plug-and-play right tackle with the ceiling of a top 5 player at the position very early in his career. Let me pose this question to both of you. Is there a scenario where the Titans decide we have our left tackle? It's Peter Skoronski. Maybe the player with the highest floor, if Joe Alt is gone, is Tale Fuaga as your right tackle. How would you feel about that?
So the thing with Tale Fuaga is the fact that he's mostly a right tackle. He has decent feet. He don't have the best feet when we're talking about pass protecting. Is pass protection something you can hide and minimize at a time? Yes. He's a physical guy. He's a run blocking guy. He's a road grader. You see him at the second level, he does those types of things too. Where I look as far as the major concern for the Titans is what? Pass protection, protecting the young quarterback, Will Levis. I'm not opposed to Tale Fuaga if he's only playing right tackle. To move him to left, I think, would be somewhat of a detriment to his career. But here's the thing. You also have Bill Callahan inside that building now. I'm not sure what he's going to be able to coach as far as the intangibles, but he's one of those goated guys when you talk about teaching technique and skill. Tale Fuaga has been in that conversation of a top 10 pick. Of a first-round pick for a while. Depending upon team needs and stuff like that is where you place him. And there's also a position where you have to ask yourself, what are you asking of him? Are you trying to reestablish a run game and have somebody that moves the line of scrimmage? Then, yes, that's Tale Fuaga, 100%.
Yeah, I remember the conversation just a couple days ago, and I know, Ramon, you liked Fuaga at the Senior Bowl.
Bowl, yeah.
Right, but the one thing you did say, and that stood out in my mind is, yes, he primarily plays on the right side. So even if you have a guy like Bill Callahan who has been known for developing tackles and offensive linemen in general, you can't ever count out anything, even if it came to possibly dipping your toes into could Peter be moved to left tackle, right? And then you have Fuaga on the right tackle side. So I feel like nothing is out of the realm here now that you have Bill Callahan. I think it opens up so many more doors to experiment. However, I don't necessarily think that is what the Titans are going to do in this situation. I just feel like they're going to have the opportunity to get either Alt or Fashanu, and you go ahead and make sure you get one of those solidified guys at the left, on the left side. And yes, you still have to figure out your right tackle position. But I think that's where Bill Callahan really comes into play. Can he continue to take Nicholas Petit-Frere to the next level? Do you maybe look at him as even moving him inside to right guard and then figuring out what you want to do on that right side with some of the guys that you have. So there's a lot more to be known of how this is going to work out, but I just say don't experiment necessarily with that situation in the draft if you've got 2 great left tackles.
But here's the thing, too, that we might run into with the draft coverage, too. Mm-hmm. New England and the Chargers could both take a tackle.
Yeah, you're right.
then it changes.
That was my question: is what is the likelihood neither Alt nor Fashanu is available to you at 7?
It's high. It really is. Neither one of those guys could be there, and you're looking at the third best guy. And if it's Tyler Fuaga, if it's Amarius Mims to you, if it's C.J. Latham, the options are good. I don't think the drop-off is that drastic. Like I said, I like Amarius being able to move over to the left. I like C.J. Latham also as a right tackle, too. There are options there. And, again, we got to go through free agency and see what that brings down the pipeline, too. But to think both of those dudes are there, I wouldn't book it.
AJ in the F&M Bank chat on YouTube is not happy with us and says dozens of fans were screaming to try to move Skoronski to left tackle all season long, and all we got was pushback that he's a guard. My response to that
comment. Go ahead.
My response to that first is yes, he is still a guard. But B, when the coaching staff changes and the coaches who are evaluating him give a different perspective, then it is worth having the conversation to survey all of the possible options. And we're having the Tale Fuaga conversation and Move Skoronski conversation because Bill Callahan might have a different evaluation. Ramon Foster, to you, though, your evaluation has not changed, and I think ours hasn't, that he is still a guard.
Peter Skoronski is a left guard.
And I don't think he's going to be moved to left tackle. But just the way we're going to have the conversation of, is there an edge rusher at 7? Is there a corner at 7? Is there a right tackle? Is there a guard? Like, we are giving you all the tools to make your own opinions. And our job on this show is to tell you what options they have. And drafting a right tackle, if the first 2 are gone, and making the most of it is certainly an option with how bad your offensive line was last year.
Got to say also, and D Good bring it up in the F&M Bank chat, Callahan said he was a guard also in his draft evaluation.
That's correct. I wonder if he'll be asked about that today. I would imagine so. If Peter Skoronski's still a guard. 615-737-1045. Coming up, we'll recap what you've missed on the show so far as Austin Price gives us the latest on the possibility of a notice of allegations from the NCAA to Tennessee. And what would you ask Ran and Brian Callahan? We'll give you some of your responses next.
It's Ramon Foster for Artisan Custom Closet. And get a jump on spring cleaning and transform your home into an oasis of calm with Artisan Custom Closet. Say goodbye to the clutter and hello to custom storage solutions that are made to suit you, your style, and your budget. If you're tired of unorganized chaos in your closet, garage, or office, let the experts, designers at Artisan Custom Closets help you get organized in any space in your home, from walk-in closets to pantries, garages, and laundry rooms. Artisan Custom Closets is local. It's not a large chain business. Not only is it local, though, but the products are manufactured in the Southeast, which means they can get them made up and sent to you quicker. Less travel as far as the shipping, so you cut the cost with that type of stuff right there. So start your free in-house design consultation and take advantage of their multiple financing options also to making getting organized easier than ever. Schedule your consultation now and bring some calm and get organized. Call 615-800-2199 or visit artisancustomclosets.com to book your appointment. That's artisancustomclosets.com.
9 o'clock. Good morning from the 104.5 The Zone Studios. I am Robert Walsh. Kind of, sort of, not really day one at the Combine. No drills today, but a lot of team meetings. Every position can meet with the available teams today, aside from offensive linemen, whose team meetings start tomorrow. Two more high-profile draft picks will not take part in the NFL Combine. Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors, the number 1 and number 2 wide receivers in this draft, will both wait until their pro day before working out for NFL teams. The first player to be officially tagged is wide receiver T. Higgins. No surprise there, carrying about a $21.8 million cap hit. But the running back position is not so lucky. They are all going to hit free agency, or maybe they are lucky, depending on how you look at it. Josh Jacobs, Saquon Barkley, Austin Eckler, Derrick Henry, all did not get tagged and will hit free agency. And the offensive lineman free agent pool gets a little deeper as the Jets release guard Laken Tomlinson. They clears about $8.1 million in salary cap, but also take on nearly $11 million in dead money by releasing him. Tomlinson had started all 34 games during his tenure with the Jets and has 138 career starts under his belt. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once on your home for the Titans and the Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Fourth and final hour of the show, 9 a.m. on a beautiful Tuesday morning in Nashville, Tennessee. Welcome in to Ramon, Kayla, and Will. Brewed by 8th and Roast, locally owned and operated by lifelong friends turned business partners who design the local shops as a way to feel welcome, connected, and part of a community. Stop by and see them at any of their 4 locations: Charlotte, 8th Avenue, the airport, the Broadview at Vanderbilt, their brand new spot here in Midtown. 615-737-1045. That is how you talk with Ramon Foster, Kayla Anderson, Robert Walsh, the most interesting producer in the world, and myself, Will Bowling. We are streaming live on 104.5 The Zone TV, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitter, or Twitch.
Please. God, he's just so slow this morning. That's why you can't send Ramon Foster.
I don't see him in there. Wait, is he in there?
Oh, you guys are
okay.
you guys are on a little bit of a delay in there.
He's on the Zoom.
You can't send. Oh, now he's there. You can't send Ramon Foster out on assignment because he just drops his Twitch Please duties. But you know what? Old Bert's here to pick it up for you. You ain't got to worry about nothing.
Bert, you got way too much control and power. That's all it is. Here I am.
Oh, sorry, Ramon, you're breaking up there. I can't really hear what you're saying.
You know when I say I hate this dude, it's actually the opposite of it. Bert, I hate you, okay? Just so you know.
I hate it here.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm dealing with right now.
You used to be better than this.
Yeah.
Thank you, Will. At least somebody knows.
I was talking to you. You used to be more quick in answering Twitch Please, Ramon. You used to be better than this.
You didn't have 8th and Roast this morning.
Here I was. Here it just take one time and telling Will he undersold what happened in TBA on Saturday, and now you switch sides. Is that what we're doing?
Sure.
Wow.
People really loved the picture of you at the Combine yesterday on Twitter. That thing's got 12,000 views on it.
It was the baggy pants.
I mean, people like this face belongs on the tube. That's why they put me on the radio.
Well, we did get 3 responses of people saying 5 too slow. So maybe people were just checking in to make sure somebody responded then.
Well, you look at that picture I had. Changing direction right there. My knee band needed to be just a little bit lower, man. Here I was critiquing myself, like, probably need a little bit more knee bend right there, Moan. It is what it is.
Coach Moan.
Coach Moan.
Now at this point. 615-737-1045, our number. Ron Slay will stop by in 15 minutes. Coming up.
You just saw who?
Sam Monson just came by and gave me the
look
tip
at
of the
that.
hat
Nice.
real quick. He is taller than I thought, by the way.
Sam. Yeah.
Okay.
Give him a little top of the morning
PFL.
for
Top
us.
of the morning.
Oh, my gosh.
He did give me the top of the morning wave right there. That was pretty good by him. I'm looking for Palazzolo to see if he's really 6'11" or whatever.
He
from
is.
PFL.
Wait, you were in the studio when they visited us, right?
Oh,
During
yeah, that's
training
right.
camp.
They were there.
Steve
Yeah, I
is
forgot.
tall,
Such a
man.
He's semi-tall. He's okay tall. I think he's lying about the 6'10". He's like 6'8", I think. That's what I'm giving him.
You sound like
Okay,
my dad when people tell him that I'm taller than him, and he'll respond and say, "No, you're just always standing on a hill. Sons can never be taller than dads. You're just always standing on a hill."
That's very true. I'm battling that in my own home right now, man. I really am. I walk by my kids sometimes. I'm like, why did you have to grow like this? But it is what it is, man.
It's your genes. Tough.
Yeah, I'm the one to blame for this, right?
You used to be better than this.
I used to be taller than him.
That's right. 10 o'clock today on The Zone, Buck Rising will get to sit down with Titans general manager Rand Carthon. He will also sit down with head coach Brian Callahan from the table where Ramon joins us this week in Indianapolis at the NFL Combine. What is the question you are most interested to hear Brian Callahan and Rand Carthon answer? Is there one thing specifically you would like to learn from the GM and the head coach today?
Again, I'm going to start off, if we take calls for that one too, again, the process of getting back to setting a winning standard. What does that look like? And especially with so many questions of free agency and also in the world of this draft, how you plan on doing it. And I know there's no correct answer. You might get a little bit of coach speaking there, but I'd like to hear a little bit of the process.
Yeah, and I mentioned this when we brought this up in hour 2 or whatever it was, is this is the first time, Rand Carthon and Brian Callahan have been together kind of in a setting like this, where they skipped the Senior Bowl to put together their staff, which they now have. Now, how is this a process of them working together in a really important environment, not only evaluating players and what you're looking for adding this year in the draft, but building those connections because so much business happens here. Is there business that will happen here that will affect them in the free agency market, right? Like you just never know what happens to the combine or during a combine week. So my biggest question to them is, what is the biggest thing you guys would like to get out of this week at the combine?
On Twitter, Rob writes in and asks on the question, what would you ask Brian Callahan or Rand Carthon at the NFL Combine? Says, are you re-signing Derrick Henry? Is the question he wants
Not going
asked.
to get probably a solid answer on that one, but it's worth asking.
Do you want to hear a lie or do you want to hear the truth? That's the question. That's the question you have to ask yourself.
Yeah.
In that one, because you can't overplay your hand with this type of stuff, because if you say, yeah, we want him back, that devalues. That also tells Derrick's camp that, hey, we know they're going to pay us. But, of course, if the Titans, his home team, make a strong play for a guy like that, sometimes you have teams that might somewhat back away, because I think a lot of teams have that idea that, look, that's his squad. If they offer him just a little bit more, even with us, he's going back home. So you can't say too much.
Yeah, and Callahan did address that question before, obviously, we hit this point in terms of, Derrick Henry has not been re-signed here at this point. So he pretty much said the politically correct answer, right, which was, hey, he's a great back. We're not looking at him. So that's probably what you're still going to get at this point.
The other side of this, too, and it's probably a poll question and a conversation we might have to have at a different point, just to hear from our fan base a little bit more, man, is what will you do if Derrick's not here?
Yeah, fair.
That's my question. What will you do without seeing 22 run through the tunnel as a fan? That right there may be a hot topic for sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting question because we don't have much of an idea of what this offense looks like without him on the sideline. We have a almost New Year's Eve game against the Cowboys when he sat last year going into the win and in game against Jacksonville. We've got drives at a time where he enters concussion protocol and Tajay Spears is on the field and they score. And then, of course, we have half the season 2 years ago where Deontay Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard carry the load. But those are such different offenses. It feels like that part of the evaluation process is just so different from what they are now. I do worry about a Titans offense that doesn't have Derrick Henry as the get-out-of-jail-free card.
Sure.
But I also understand that he's probably not back, and you probably don't have that luxury in 2024.
I would also ask. Go ahead, Ramon.
No, go ahead. You got it.
I was also going to ask. This is at the top of my mind right now because we're talking about free agency coming up, right? And the money that the Titans have. And my question would also be, like, how much money could you consider putting into a free agent? Is there a position that you really feel like you guys want to spend on that, right? Whether it be a cornerback or possibly a wide receiver, because there are some top of the line cornerbacks and wide receivers in free agency, but would they be willing to pay that price?
Yeah, I'll tell you one position that a lot of teams just don't pay a lot of money for these days, and that's running back.
Yep.
So that's where you have to run into balancing the amount of money you have versus what you're capable of spending for what position. If there is a position, Kayla, I think corners are some of those type of guys. But, of course, you also battling with the team that a guy like L'Jarius Sneed is leaving from too. They're at least going to put a bid in, and all that's going to do is push the price up a little bit more. And they're just a lot of open places here that need to be filled before you start overpaying for luxury pieces like that at a time.
I agree.
In case you missed the conversation earlier this morning, we had VolQuest's Austin Price on the show and asked him, now that the injunction has been granted to Tennessee against the NCAA, will there be a notice of allegations? And Austin had this to say.
Well, normally it comes really quick after they have their little summary meeting to kind of go over everything, and it never came because, obviously the state of Tennessee sued the NCAA, and I think that kind of threw them into a little bit of a tailspin there. And, I'm not sure we ever see the notice of allegations. I mean, is it possible? Sure, they could still send it. But, so much of the stuff that they're trying to retroactively punish Tennessee for wasn't even a guidance, much less a rule when any of the stuff happened. All that now is thrown out with the ruling by Judge Corker. So I'm not sure we see them throw, what they tried to, present to Tennessee at Tennessee.
That was Austin Price of VolQuest. A ton of good nuggets for him on the Vols and NCAA front earlier this morning. If you missed that conversation, you can find it right at the end of the show, wherever you download podcasts at 10 o'clock. Coming up, the one and only Ron Slay. Television's Ron Slay joins us. What will it take for Tennessee to earn a number one seed in the NCAA tournament? And heading into a busy week against Auburn and Alabama, what is the one thing Tennessee has to do to win both of these games and finish 2-0 in a critical week? Ron Slay of SEC Network and 3HL joins us next.
When it comes to large home repairs, a lot of time we homeowners pretend we don't see the warning signs. We're afraid of what we're going to hear. This is especially true with waterproofing and foundation repair. It could be something big that needs to be fixed right away, or maybe a small problem now that'll be bigger later, or it could be nothing at all. Bottom line is, we don't know, and we certainly don't want to be sold something we don't need. What we need is a peace of mind. United Structural Systems is a company to give you that. They have over 25,000 100% satisfied residential customers, and here's how they make that happen, okay? When USS comes out to your house, you're going to get a problem solver who provides a peace of mind to their customers. You're not going to get someone who's worried about meeting a sales quota or upselling the next big thing, but someone there to educate you and help you understand what is happening with your home. At USS, the only measure of success is how satisfied the homeowner is and not a closing ratio. Homeowners trust USS, keeping homes dry and stable for over 25 years. USS serving Middle Tennessee, Southern Kentucky, Western Kentucky, and Northern Alabama. You can reach them online at USSTN.com or call them 615-488-7855.
RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone, rolling right along in hour number 4. Coming up at 10 o'clock this morning, right at the top of the Buck Rising Show, you've got Rand Carthon, you've got Brian Callahan. Back to back, quickly, in quick succession in hour 1. Stay tuned for that. But right now, we talk some SEC hoops, some Tennessee hoops on a massive week for the Vols with our very good friend, Ron Slay, who joins us right now. What's up, Slay? How are you?
What up, baby? Take the A out and put an O right there. And then it's Ron, not Rand. I know y'all want Rand, but you got Ron right now. What's happening?
How we
What's up,
doing?
Slay?
Good. Big week for Tennessee hoops, to say the least.
Yeah. Definitely. Big week for them, I think. But you gotta think it wouldn't have been a big week if they didn't handle business. So, and I'm talking about going to handle Arkansas, handling Missouri, and also handling Vandy. If you don't handle those 3 teams, then this is not a big week. But because you did, and you got revenge on Texas A&M, you set yourself up to be able to go and get the SEC regular season championship. So everything's in front of you. And this is where you want to be at. It looks like you're starting to gel at the right time. Still want to peak, when March hits, and here it is.
Slay, against Texas A&M, Tennessee out-rebounds the Aggies 50-33, and Jonas Adu has 14 of those boards. Where have you seen his mentality change, and what do you like about the way he specifically is playing for Tennessee right now?
You know what? It's more so it's been there. Will is just, it's almost like a reminder. And, when you look around the league and you're starting to see, you're looking at guys like Tolu Smith, you're looking at guys like Janai Broome, all these bigs, B.J. Mack, Colin Murray-Boyles, the list goes on with the bigs that are in this game. What is your impact like? You have to have a consistent impact. The guys that are at the top of the charts, Grant Nelson, when you're looking at Alabama, they all have impacts throughout the entire season when they're thriving. And I think Jonas Adu being able to take this step and be reminded that, hey, man, we need you. We need you to go out there and score. So when you see Josiah Jordan-James and you don't see him filling up the stat sheet as far as points goes, Santi, the same thing, you'll have to look at Jonas Adu and wonder what he did. Because if he's doing what he's supposed to do, you have the output like this. And it's okay for Josiah to go and score 8 points, 10 points, Santi to score 6, because you're getting output from Jonas Adu. And he has to be that anchor. He has to understand he's that guy now. You know what I'm saying? In order to take this step, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about what do we need from you. You know what it is, and you got to be able to go deliver for us to take that step. So I think he's taking the steps in the right direction. He's understanding who he is, the responsibility that he has as being a big for Tennessee and giving an inside presence. We don't need you floating around the perimeter trying to shoot threes. It's okay. We got some guys that can do that. If it calls for that, we'll rely on you to do that. But for now, anchor the middle, and that's exactly what he's doing. So he's understanding who he is at this point, and it's only good for him.
Savage, when in the basketball world as an athlete, as a competitor, man, I think we saw one of the best almost triple-doubles of a player ever. We're talking about Zakai Ziegler was 1 point away and 1 rebound away from a triple-double. Will he chase that, or will he just continue to go back and play his game and not get outside the confines of team ball?
First of all, they go my dog. What up, Savage?
I did treat you like you was somebody else, didn't I? I did treat you like you was somebody else. I did.
You tried to. I ain't biting for it, though. But you spot on, Savage, man. I don't think he goes out and chases it. This is who he has to be for this team also to take his step. It's him, and it's also Zakai along with Dalton Connect. That's the three-headed monster you need with everybody else surrounding them and supporting them as a supporting cast. You look at his numbers, he was 3 for 10 in that game too. And we're still saying he had an outstanding game. That's amazing. You shot 30%. And you pretty much had the best game on the court for both teams. That's saying a lot, man. So imagine the games that he's really on. I don't think he has to chase it. I think it falls in his lap. If he's doing what he's supposed to do, not turning the ball over, setting guys up, being able to be a catalyst on both ends of the floor for this team to do some great things, he doesn't have to chase it. He did this in 35 minutes with 0 turnovers. I think that's the most important thing. And then, the little bunnies that he missed, he's going to be hard on himself, but you expect him to get back in the gym and get that 3 for 10 up to about 6 for 10, and then you got a whole different conversation going on. I said it, what, a month ago, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, man, the man reminds me of Tyler Ulis. When Tyler Ulis went on to be SEC Player of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. Like, that's what I expect out of Zakai. He set the bar right there. He should be first team All-SEC, and he should be SEC Defensive Player of the Year. I understand, like, when it comes to block shots, it shines a brighter light on it. But, man, he does things on both ends of the floor. And when it comes to defense, when you talk about just taking people's cookies, he takes it. His timing is impeccable. So I expect Zakai to be right there. Definitely, and I'm not sure if Tennessee has ever had somebody be first team All-SEC and first team All-SEC defensively. So, but he should be Defensive Player of the Year in my book.
Savage with us this morning. Y'all know who that guy is, man. Another guy we know well because he's been around for a little bit too is Santi Vescovi, Savage. I got to ask you this. You see spurts of the stuff that he was in a bigger role with the squad do, right? Like shooting the three, being around off-ball stuff and stuff like that. For this team to make it to the Final Four and potentially win a national championship, what version of Santi do you need? Because at the end of the first half, he hits a three and he's talking trash and asking for the and one and all that type of stuff. But then you find spells of where he go missing for a little while. What version of Santi do you need for the rest of the year?
Man, you need the version of him being a leader, and being able to watch the game and see what's missing. He needs to be able to be. You can't leave him. You know what I mean? He needs to be accounted for at all times. If you start leaving off of Santi and he doesn't make you pay, then we got a problem. But when you look down the list, you get 14 shots from Edu, 14 from Connect, 10 from Zakai. I think you're all right. Josiah was aggressive in taking 8 shots. Santi took 5 shots. But you got to understand, too, these guys aren't leaving Santi. And if Santi also isn't rolling at the time, then you got to look for the bench. Jordan Gainey may be able to go get some of those minutes. Meshack may be able to go get some of those minutes. Cameron Carr at sometimes may be able to go get some of those minutes. So you're not losing anything. Would you love to see Santi score 10, 12 points a game and hunt his shot a little bit more? Yes. But with him hunting shots, everything that you just gave praise for to Edu, praise to Zakai, praise to Dalton Connect, you got to take a little bit of that from them. So it's about understanding who you are, man, understanding what your role is on this team. And when it comes to Santi, the version that we need is him being able to knock down open shots when given an opportunity and make sure his man is sticking by his side. His man can never go help. So that way, you don't have to worry about guys playing 5-on-4 or things of that nature. They're always going to be able to play with their matchups. And if they overhelp, you got to make them pay.
Slay Dog joining us this morning on RKW. You can look for his suit collaboration every week on X or Twitter, whatever you want to call it, because it's always on point. Slay, for Tennessee, in terms of the remaining schedule, damn, it's a gauntlet. Auburn, Alabama, South Carolina, Kentucky, all quad one. And how big is this for a finish for Tennessee to even maybe flex its biceps a little more and say, hey, we can be a number 1 seed?
It's huge, KK. It is huge, and I appreciate the shout out. I just try to get on there and get dapper. I see how you come to the game. You know what I mean? I see you on TV when y'all be taking pictures. You on Savage. I be like, okay. So y'all just make me step my game up. I'm trying to get the way y'all at.
You're
so
there.
I appreciate that. But you look at it, 4 quad one wins. You go win the regular season SEC title. You're ranked 4th right now. You finish off this season with all wins, you automatically put yourself in the running for a number 1 seed. And I think it's undeniable. Even if they were to lose on Friday, in the SEC tournament. If they had a double bye, they played and they lost. I still think you get a number 1 seed. But if you to win out and then win on Friday, I mean, you might as well stamp it. It's pretty much guaranteed because the guys you playing are all guys that are, like you said, quad 1 wins and people that are trying to, boast for that top 3, top 4 seeds in the NCAA tournament. But all of this right here is where you want to be. It comes down to the stretch of you look at Auburn, you look at Alabama, what they've done the last 3 or 4 years, how it's happened. They all come down the stretch of the season and handle business. Now, Tennessee has put themselves in position where they can now do the exact same thing. So it's beautiful to see. And I honestly believe like they can go get it done. Do I expect them to lose one? I think at Bama is going to be tough. It's going to be tough because Bama should have it on their mind as far as some get back because of what we saw in Thompson-Boling. But I think there's so much separation in that. It's going to be tough, man, the way Tennessee is playing and the physicality with that big man lineup. I'm not sure if Alabama can handle that. But if they shooting the ball the way they shoot the ball at home, it's going to be tough for Tennessee to get to it.
So you have Lenardi, Joe Lenardi, obviously a bracketologist for ESPN, and he's talking about, Houston, UConn, these number 1 seeds, and maybe there's a bigger gap between them and the number 2 seeds. Would you disagree with that, Slay? And why do you feel like a team like Tennessee is just as good as a Houston or a UConn? I know that every team is different, but in terms of even like a mismatch that we see during tournament play, who's more able to overcome that?
Man, I think they're right up there with them. When you talk about Houston, Purdue, UConn, because you look at the way these teams went and lost as well. Now, it's only 3 losses, but I will say, man, the conference, to me, outside of the Big 12, when you look at Purdue in the Big 10, I don't feel it's as strong as the SEC. I definitely don't feel like the Big East is as strong as the SEC going night in and night out. And you saw that when UConn, we thought they were pulling away, and Creighton goes and blows their socks off. Houston is a different case. I think Kevin Sampson has those guys locked in, ready to roll. And I would put them, I like them at 1, honestly. And that's not a team that you want to go up against, especially if you ain't been hitting the weight room. Because they are going to expose you, and it's going to be really, really tough. UConn is different. UConn is they're a really good team. I think when you talk about the ones that can compete, I look at Houston, UConn, and Tennessee. Purdue doesn't scare me.
Yeah.
Purdue doesn't scare me because they're not hitting those outside shots, which we know when you get in there, that's how they got upset in the first place in the first round. Because you get in these big arenas, and I was talking about it on 3HL yesterday, you get in these big arenas, and behind the basket, the depth perception is different in those big arenas than it is in the gyms that you play in, the arenas that you play in for your home games, because you go straight up. In the arenas that they're going to play in, it goes out and up.
Good point.
It's a bit of a difference once you get to the tournament. But I believe that Houston is right there, UConn's right there, and Tennessee is right there. Purdue, man, Edey is a problem. But, man, if you rely on one guy to carry you like that, I'm willing to bet against it.
3HL and SEC Network's Ron Slay, our guest this morning. Slay, tell me if this is a true or false statement. Tennessee has the best ceiling of SEC basketball teams in the tournament because it is the most balanced team on offense and defense. Is that a fair assessment?
Repeat the first part of that one more time.
Tennessee has the best chances of making a Final Four of anyone in the SEC because they are the most balanced team in the way they play offense and defense.
The best chance of making it. I'm going to have to say yes, but it's a 1A and a 1B.
Okay.
When you talk about balance, I'm going to have to. I got to throw Florida in there, man.
Ooh,
wow.
okay.
When you talk about top to bottom, they are a difficult matchup, man. When you look at size, from the point guard all the way down. When you talk about depth, to me, they're the deepest team along with Auburn in the SEC because you have two guys at every single spot. When you look at the interior, they got 3 7-footers and a 6'10" guy. Like, and all of them play. And all of them impact the game. Each game is one different big man. Same thing for the guards. You got Pullen, you got Clayton, you got Will Richards, and you got Riley Kugel. Like, these guys, man, ooh, they are a headache. The smallest guy is 6'3", that's going to be on the floor. And my dark horse for SEC Player of the Year would be Zakai Ziegler and Walter Clayton Jr. You know what I'm saying? And I think Todd Golden finally has these guys playing and believing in each other the way that he thought he would last year. But they had to go to the portal, grab some guys. So that same mindset that he brought from San Francisco, he's implemented that in Florida. And, man, they are thriving in it. It's a fun style to watch. They share the ball now, knowing that they can go one-on-one, but they do pass up good shots to get great shots. They're back running in transition, and they're back playing Florida ball, pulling up for 3 in transition with 7-footers going down there and chasing the rebounds and then protecting the basket on the other side. So my pick would be both, man, Tennessee and Florida, man. And Florida's ran off some good ones in these last couple of weeks, and man, they're impressive to me, dude. Like, even when Tennessee handled them earlier, I walked away from the game like, dang. Look, like, that's going to be a good team. You just got to keep your eye on them, man. Like, you talk about peaking at the right time? They peaking at the right time. And you look how their schedule ends up. It bodes well for them. They got a Bama coming to them, which they should handle. They got to go to South Carolina. But the other 2 games are Missouri and Florida coming to the Gainesville. So it could end well for them as well.
Can we just clear the air on something too? When you have like certain names, you know, like Walter Clayton Jr., you gotta be a dog. You can't just walk around and be just Walter Clayton Jr. and not be a dog. Can we just get on the same page with that?
No, that's absolutely right, Savage. And then when you got a name like Riley Kugel, and your dad is sitting in the stands with a jersey on, and he steals the show from the players because he's a diesel, looking like he just got up off the bench rack. So yeah, man, they got some different guys. And peep this though. Did you know Walter Clayton Jr. was a 5-star football player?
What?
Yeah, y'all peep that out. Y'all check that out.
Did not know that.
5-star. Man, Cole, man, you talking about pure D athlete. Say he was the truth.
Wow.
And chose to go. So didn't play football his junior year, either football or basketball, whichever one, maybe reverse. But when he didn't play, he didn't get any offers, and he wanted to hoop. So he went out to set the stage on fire so that he could hoop. So he left the 5-star football behind.
He is Ron Slay, 3HL and SEC Network, bringing the goods as always.
That is me, Will Lee. That is me.
Talking SEC and Vols hoops. Slay, Brian Callahan is about to talk live, and we're going to carry that on the other side. So in the words of most Fortune 500 company bosses on Zooms, we'll give you your couple minutes back. We'll give that back to you this morning.
Hey, y'all got me on off. I guess I've been the knee for Callahan. All right, dog.
Thank you, Ron.
See you, Slay Dog.
See you, Sam.
There's Ron Slay with us this morning here on the show. Brian Callahan's going to talk. We'll carry it for you next. RKW is brewed by 8th and Roast on 104.5 The Zone. And right now we take you to Indianapolis, where Tennessee Titans head coach Brian Callahan addresses the media.
Really fun partnership to build, a relationship to start to grow with, and it's been a blast. Obviously, coming from Cincinnati, heavily involved in the draft process. That's how they've operated for a long time. I think it's been a huge benefit to me, being involved in that process the way we were, being in all those draft meetings, in the draft process, in the evaluation process. That's an area that I feel that I've really grown over the years of being there, and I think it's a huge help to me currently being involved in that. So we have more people obviously in Tennessee than we did in Cincinnati, and so I'll lean on those guys heavily as we get started. But our coaching staff will be involved. We're going to have great conversations. It's still going to be a collaboration because a lot of times coaches see things in a different light than scouts, and it really allows you to make sure you are evaluating the whole picture and selecting the right player. And so you want the coach's input, you want the scouts' input, you want everyone to feel like their conversations, their opinions are being heard and they're being discussed. And then on top of that, you're listening too. That's a big part of it. So I'm really excited about how we're set up and how it's going to work in this draft process.
Brian, going back a couple of years that you worked with Alex Van, just how would you describe him as a coach, and what do you remember from that experience?
Alex is unbelievable. I was with Alex for a year. Really sharp. Obviously has the playing experience to back up a lot of things he said. Worked with a great quarterback in Green Bay. A great feel for offensive football. And I think what you'll love about Alex is he's got a great personality, and he's outstanding when it comes to building relationships with the coaches and the players. Players love playing for him, being around him. I think he's going to be I think he's a great coach, personally. I really enjoyed my year with him. And then obviously my dad's been with him for 3 years, and he would say the same things if you asked him. So really top-notch person and coach.
What did he introduce to the offense that year? Anything specific you remember he brought us to this?
That first year, I think it was great because he had a relationship with Andy Dalton, and some of the quarterback footwork was new for me. He had done things a little bit differently, so that was really fun to get to hear about that process and how effective it had been for Andy late in his career. So that was probably one thing I could point out for you.
Ryan talked about in his interview wanting to bring in a playmaker, and with this wide receiver class being so deep and having a lot of different varying talents, what are you looking for in this class to bring in and add to this team that isn't already there?
Yeah, I think there's an element of explosiveness, of speed that we can add that would help us. This is a really fun class of players, really from the top part of the class all the way down to the bottom. There's going to be good receivers. I think you'll find that'll come off the board in the second, third, and fourth rounds that I think will be contributors for some teams. So it's a deep class. There's really a lot of variations of player. There's guys that are good with the ball in their hands. There's guys that are really fast. There's guys that are big and strong. So there's a good mix of talent that fits. And when you're building the receiver room, you're trying to collect a little bit of all of those things. And so it's a fun class to evaluate, and hopefully we can find a couple guys that fit us.
You talked about how the scouting had a new offensive philosophy. Scouting kind of had to go back and take a different look at guys and maybe look for something a little different to fit what's going on now. How much can you as the coaches have input into that in terms of what's looking for?
No, it's a huge part of the process in educating what we're looking for, and I think Rand might have mentioned it. I've mentioned it once or twice before, but when you set up these position criterias and you set up these profile tapes of what you're looking for, it gives those guys a clear vision into what they are out scouting for. So when they're on the road, when our pro scouts are looking at free agents, it gives everybody a pretty clear avenue of what we're looking for, and I think that that's our job as coaches, is to help inform that. And then it's their job as evaluators to evaluate it. And there's going to be times where we love a guy and maybe the evaluation side feels a little differently. And so our job is always going to be to make sure we have those conversations and determine which player fits us best. But our job as coaches is to point them in the right direction. It would be really hard for me to compare Jamar to anybody but Jamar. He's sort of his own animal, if you will. He's incredibly talented. There's not many receivers like him in football. So to compare anybody to him, I think, would be unfair. I do like some of the traits that Treylon has shown on tape. There's some things that I'm excited to work with. And then he's got to do his part when it comes down to taking care of yourself and making sure he's ready to roll when we start. But talented player and one that's got some development to go. I would say Jamar's development is in a whole different stratosphere. He didn't need a whole lot of it. But again, I'm excited about what Traylon could bring for us once he comes in the building.
Where do you think you are with team speed?
Team speed, you can never have enough of it. So we'll be looking for plenty of it. I think we need to be faster. We need to be more explosive. That's always going to be part of it. And you always want to have a good mix. You're going to have guys that can win in the physical battles, in the 50-50 balls, in the contested catch range. But you also need guys that can stretch the field and threaten the defense. And those are things that we'll be looking for, obviously, in the free agency and draft process coming up.
Ryan, you had mentioned Derrick Henry, how no offense would not want a guy like that in their scheme.
Right.
Where are you as far as like running back value?
That whole conversation, yeah. I mean, you want guys that can carry the ball, you want guys that can protect, and you want guys that can be dynamic out of the backfield. Sometimes that's one player, sometimes that's three. I think what's happening is that division of labor is being divided up amongst that room. So you're getting 2 and 3 guys that are contributing more than maybe just one guy all the time. And so I don't think there's a devaluation of the running back position. I think the division of labor has been separated a little more. So that's probably the best way to say that. You have to have good backs. There's really no way around it. Obviously, there's a positional spending that goes with that, but to have good running backs, ones that can protect, ones that can win routes in the pass game, can catch, ones that are explosive, and then you got to have guys too that sometimes when you need 2 yards, they're going to pound for 2 yards and make it hard on a defense to tackle them. So I don't devalue the running back position. I know how valuable it is. You just have to have a lot of different types of them ultimately when you're building that room for your team.
There is Titans head coach Brian Callahan. Lots for us to unpack on tomorrow morning's show, but right now it is time to pass the baton to our good friend Buck Rising. The Buck Rising show is coming up next, and Rand Carthon will join Buck in minutes. Right at the top of the hour at 10 o'clock, Brian Callahan joins him at 10:30. We've got all the reaction for you coming up tomorrow on RKW.